Really? Why is it only half of me? When's the rest of me gonna get there? There we are. There we are. There we are. We're not that bad. We're not that far gone. What's going on here? What's going on? What's going on here? What's going on? Okay. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. Doggy girl. Doggy girl. Thank you. Lord God. Thanks so much, Father. Thank you, God. Valley of Resurgence. Take another chance today. Why do you not have any battery? Hello, welcome. Don't tell me that's my editor. Being too loyal. If you're not my editor, check in. Let's see. Well, welcome either way. We're just getting started. We are just getting started. The fact that it's a view and a like makes me think it's my editor. We are doing many things today. No chat. 2 likes, 1 view and 2 likes. That's cool. So, hello, and welcome to my stream. My, what is this, the 4th, 5th stream I've made? Am I streaming too much? I don't care. I enjoy it so much. I really enjoy hanging out with you. Even if it's like 2 of you, I'd rather do my prep. I'd rather share things. I'd rather get sidetracked and go on about every random little thing that comes to mind for 2 of my viewers than for no one at all. What do you need help with? Cheesy McLean. I'm not sure who that is. Cool. I'm getting people actually volunteering to help me build my system. That's cool. I could really use that. I'll tell you, man. All right. So what I currently have, I'm not going to start with this. I think this will be like the 3rd thing I do. First on the order, first on the docket is, what are avatars? I started out attempting to answer that question last stream, and I failed to answer the question. I rewatched it. I was like, okay, exactly when did I go wrong? I started talking about arches, because arches and avatars, like, I want to tell you what the whole thing's about. And then I went from arches to like, and that's how the Tetrarch class works, and that's how the other mage classes work. And I went on for like 2 hours about not answering the question. So yeah, I'm gonna move that down. We're gonna put my wand here. So yeah, this time I'm actually going to get to what arches and avatars is about, the default activity. And then I'm gonna tell you all about how one of the big values that I intend to offer over the next however many years I have this channel up is the fact that I have collected all of the D&D advice, all of the world building advice, all of the world building and gameplay systems for GMs and players and world builders, all of it. I've collected like all of D&D YouTube, and I've written it down, most of it by hand. Only recently have I started to be like, hey, Google, AI, summarize this content. It would give me bullet points. I have a very few of those. Most it's just actual written down details of like, okay, these are the takeaways of the video. Here's what to do in your system. A whole bunch of stuff, and it's just like million words at least one third. I don't know, but like a lot, whole bunch of words, hundreds and hundreds of thousands. And so that's what I intend to share on this channel, along with books and whatnot, eventually actual published products. But I intend to share with y'all just how, just like all of the collected information out there, so you don't have to watch Luke Hart, DM Lair, how to be a great GM, blah blah blah. You don't have to watch all of these things. Not that you shouldn't, but it's like you don't have to go hunting down each thing and scouring the internet and hoping you remember it. Like I intend to actually not just make videos, but give you actual written documents that I eventually compile into a big book that says, hey, if you want to, start a new game, right? You want to be linear, great. Here's what you do. You build the setting, build the characters. Here's how you integrate everything. Oh, you want to do Sandbox, which I prefer. Cool, here, right? Like an actual full listed out system with bullet points each step as you go. And then, cross-referencing and helping you, like giving you the tools to world build, to GM, to doing, and all your notebooks and whatnot. Dude, I have 3 million words. 3 million words in 3 years. But yeah, I intend to give you all that, service of like everything is just done. It's out there for you. It's collected, right? I want to collect everything for you. I've already collected it. I want to actually publish it because, why not, right? And so, yeah, I was gonna talk about that. Looks like I'm gonna give some examples. I'll talk about that later. And then lastly, we're gonna do a little bit of world building. It says Valley of Resurgence. You can ignore that. I changed it to the Valley of Bones because I like that better. Hello, Tiago Nata. I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but hello, welcome to the stream. So good to see you. All right. So yeah, the last thing I'll do is a bit of world building. Like I've actually been taking to writing in a physical notebook again because it's so fun to write physically. I have 4 pages because there are 4 pillars, and that's just kind of how I roll. But yeah, I could get distracted and talk about absolutely anything, and of course I love answering questions. Anything y'all want me to cover, happy to do it impromptu live. That might be my favorite part. All right, so we're gonna get started, and I'm not gonna worry about turning this into like snippets of videos. I'm not gonna do like all like the professional what's it called, the prim and proper like thing that for upload. I'm not gonna do that. It's gonna be more casual tonight. Because, I like it. All right, and thank you for the 4th viewer. Hello, welcome. Thank you all for liking. All right, so first things first, what are avatars? The question that I failed to answer last time. I started talking about arches, and then I failed to talk about avatars. So I'm gonna, it's arches and avatars. I'm gonna give a brief rundown again of what arches are. So arches are essentially, in the, I have this like the lore, like this is playable. You can go back and play as characters during this time, right? But the way my world started out is that there was like, sure, the elemental planes and the stars, and they all form one big planet, right? It was one big thing. It was before there were individual planes at all. It was just one world. Every plane was on this world, right? It was your elemental planes, your shadow, your this and that, your fae, all of it. And it had the hells, the heavens, limbo, all of it. Like everything was just one world, right? And then there's like the core of the world, which is like the heart of everything. And what happened was a couple of immortals, I think it's like 12 of them, went into like the core of the planet itself and did something and split up the whole planet, right? And so it split into 9 different planets, right? And so those planets all formed the solar system. It's technically an ether system, not a solar system. And so what happened was the dragons, who were very essential, they were very much part of the world itself and what the world is. They decided that, hey, it's our job to, protect the ethereal core of the, of the planet they're on, right? Because there are 9 planets and a whole bunch of dragons in each, but we'll just give one as an example, the central planet. They're like, all right, because that's where the game takes place. It's the central of the 9 planets. And so they said, all right, we have to make sure that the core of this planet, because each planet had its own core, the way the first world did, we have to protect the core of this planet and make sure nothing bad happens to it, right? And so they built, essentially, they all the dragons are elemental, so they took their bodies and essentially morphed them into their elemental form and created these big arches that just covered up the core of the world. And when I say core, there's like an actual core at the center of the planet, but kind of like an umbilical cord or something, there's a shaft that goes up to one spot on the surface of the planet. And that's what most people on the surface call the core. It's really the far end of the core that leads to the actual core of the world, but they just call it the core because that's the part they see. So the dragons covered up that spot, right? And the other dragons, are like, all right, cool, we're gonna, try to govern man and make sure everything is kosher and cool. And then when they go into their like rest mode, they're like, okay, we'll just turn into arches and just kind of hang out until we're needed, until something happens, right? They're the protectors of the world. So what in game you use various abilities. You gain various abilities from the arches. You can pull their elemental magic. You can like destroy them and pull the power from them. You can like wake up a dragon and fight it or tame it or blah blah blah. There's so many things you can do with the arches. They're the thing that kind of hold the world together, almost like a needle and thread holds a garment. And like needle and thread goes up and down. So the same thing with the arches. They're just all over. They're holding everything together. The dragons are like the bones of the earth. They hold everything up. And there are water arches and air and sky and air and earth and fire arches and all sorts of stuff. Lots of variations. It's super cool. All right. So in something like So the avatar part. Finally getting to that before I get distracted. With avatars, they are essentially in my world. I don't have gods, right? I like the idea that when you're taking certain actions and you're doing things in the world, that you get your comeuppance, that something automatically happens, right? There's no god that grants you something, and there's no devil that punishes you or something. It's just like, oh, you did this thing, well, this thing happens, right? It's just an automatic. It's like you putting money into a vending machine and getting your soda. It's like no one decided that this would happen. You push the button, and so it came out. Cause and effect, right? You did it to yourself. You made the thing happen, right? So I call that like association magic, where if you do a whole bunch of good actions, you associate yourself with goodness, right? In my world, like a lot of D&D games and stuff like that, concepts like good and evil and whatnot are actually big, physical, real things. And so like actual forces in the universe, and they like have their own angels and fiends and whatnot. Like these are actual real things. So when you in my world act a certain way, you pick up an idea, like a concept, like we'll say goodness. You pick goodness, you're like, all right, this is kindness and generosity and love for people and all that stuff, right? I'm going to be good. I'm going to do good. And you're charitable and blah blah blah, right? You do all the good things because that's the thing you've chosen. You spend your whole life walking that path, 50 years. And you're like Gandhi or something, right? You're giving to the poor, you're doing all these things, and you walk that path of goodness so much that you become goodness, that you have done so much good, so good becomes you. It goes into you the way you have done it, right? So your skin would start to turn gold or silver, and your hair would start to glow, your eyes would glow, your mouth and everything. It's like the early stages are like becoming an ASMR in D&D, the way they're described as like, the glowing mouth and the halo and whatnot, like these things would happen more and more and more. And when you become an avatar, that's when you reach a level of perfection where you have fully acted out your ideal, that you are now the embodiment of that ideal on Earth, right? You are the avatar of that concept, right? And so that's when we'll use good as our continuing example. You glow gold, and now you can fly, and you can heal anyone with a touch, and like you're this ultimate like glowing angel being, right? And you're an avatar. You're above any sort of angel or any other things out there because you chose it through your free will. You're immortal, and you became this thing, right? That's different and has a certain level of worthiness that just being an angel and just being kind of spawned from goodness. It's like, oh, I'm innately good because I was made from it, right? There's not as much credit due, so they don't have as much power. It's like, no, when you chose to do this, then you are magnificent. So yeah, and of course you can be like an avatar of good, evil, order, disorder. I renamed them in my system. There's harmony, grace, justice, liberty, oppression, abuse, enmity, and strife. So you're like, I'm an avatar of strife. What does that mean? You fight, you promote wars, you promote conflict, all that sort of thing, right? And so your avatar state is something like growing spikes and horns and being 10 foot tall and like sprouting automatic, like I want to say Daedric weapons from Elder Scrolls. Like you sprout these Daedric weapons, and you're just like an avatar of strife, right? An avatar of good, of grace would be like healing and love and cleansing and all that kind of stuff, right? An avatar of justice would be like some ultimate knight warrior, right? So yeah, the reason why the game is called Arches and Avatars is because I think the goals of finding the arches and exploiting them for like the super cool ultimate power, and also, or alternatively, like you can do these both at the same time, or one or the other, or none. The other goal of becoming an avatar of the world. Like I embodied this concept so fully that I became it and it became me, and I am now like the spokesperson of this concept on Earth, right? And then your character becomes immortal and they're added to the canon. It's like you are now an avatar. They actually fly up and like join with one of the stars in the sky. And so they're just like floating up there in space, like they're technically halfway between Earth and the star itself. So they're this conduit. And so like that's like this awesome thing. It's like my character became an avatar, right? It's the closest thing in my world to get to apotheosis. It's the closest thing you get to becoming a god. So I think those goals are so much more interesting than Dungeons and Dragons. Than delve into a dungeon, kill dragons and get their treasure and leave. I still think that's a lot of fun. I'm not dissing it at all. Going into dungeons and slaying dragons is really cool, but in terms of grand scope, I wanted the default activity to be something better, to be something cooler, to be something that's like, this is thrilling. It's super mega interesting. It's really out there. And so that's what an avatar is. And that's why the game is called Arches and Avatars. So, finally, answering that one, the next one is all about collecting all the advice on the internet, on blogs and YouTube and all of it into one place. And the thing I have as a couple examples are this actually. All right, so if you've ever looked at like city building or world building, there are these various acronyms that people use to help guide their cities and their world building and whatnot. There's one called STEPS, the STEPS method by Dungeon Coach. It is size, theme, essentials, people, and shops. So he says, hey, if you want to build a city, use the STEPS method. Determine the size of the city, its theme, apply the theme to the essentials, think about the people, and then the shops. That's cool. There's another one called the Supreme method. Social structures, underworld influence, political activities, religious experiences, economic impacts, military actions, and environmental factors. That's a cool one. There's one called SPERM, social, political, economic, religious, and military. That's cool. So you're thinking about the city or the region or whatnot. You can take these concepts and apply them small or large, and so it helps you world build. There's another one called Doppelganger. Defense, occultism, people, politics, economics, law, geography, assets, nemesis, goal, executive, and religion. And these are all cool. And so me as a GM, a world builder, I'm looking through all this stuff and I'm like, all right, so we have a whole lot of these things. I clearly can tell that there are some that overlap. There are multiple that talk about politics or people or some kind of military or whatnot. And so one of my goals, and I'm just going to show you a work in progress. This isn't even done. But one of my goals is to take all of these and actually condense them down and combine them and give you like the master document, the master list of here's how to world build, collect all of the advice, all of the different categories and everything that anyone has ever suggested, and I'm going to give them all to you. And so you have a one-stop shop for your world building. Identical. That's probably why I'm not getting any views because that thumbnail. Anyway, I'm talking about my second topic, which is collecting all the D&D advice I found on YouTube and the internet and the blogs and everything in one place. So an example of that is taking all the different acronyms like what is it? STEPS, Doppelganger, SPERM, and Supreme, and just taking them all and and putting them in just like one spot. So what I have so far is geography, size, theme, environmental factors, natural magic use, shops, weather, assets, defense, economic. You have economic impacts and resources. Military structure, military actions. You can add military resources and a whole bunch of stuff. People, social, your social structures. Politics, your political tensions, your political activities. Law, executive, like who's running the place, who's the head of the law. Goal, like a city or a region can have a specific goal, the reason for the goal, the methods to achieve the goal, and an obstacle for the goal. There's their nemesis, like you can isn't it so cool to look at player characters and be like, oh look, here's a character. He has a nemesis. We're gonna world build a city now. Ooh, who's their nemesis, right? It's a thing we don't usually think about, but I think it's super cool. Religion. You have organized religions, religious experiences. Like when the characters get there, what actually is the religion about? Occultism, underworld influences, right? So I've taken all of the different things from all of the different world building acronyms, and I'm collecting them all in one place, right? I intend to do this for absolutely everything. All of the world building stuff out there, all of the GMing advice, all of the player advice, all of it. I intend to collect them all in one big place because I've collected all of them individually. So I just need to compile them, see where they overlap, and then release the master document. So anyway, that's my third topic. I just have a couple tabs open here because I'm world building my own setting right now, one for my Saturday game, and here's something I wrote down myself. I watched a video by the Fantasy Forge, 11 world building mistakes to avoid, and I wrote all of this, ignoring diversity, the impact that different races and cultures would have on each other and the world, and not forgetting outer planes and echoplanes and all of the influences that all of those would have. Use our own world for comparison and look at the variety of cultures and customs. Turn it up to 11 with fantasy. Otherwise, you'll miss out on a lot of depth and wonder what makes players want to explore your world, right? Ignoring environmental impacts, oversimplifying conflict, neglecting everyday life, glossing over history, underdeveloped geography, stereotypical races, ignoring impacts of magic, no consequences to history, not exploring cultural interactions, and thinking too much about history. So I have all of these tabs open, like that was one tab, right? I have a whole bunch of tabs open, ask why 3 times, combine things to make awesome things, conflict in world or culture building. Conflict is the most interesting. Small scale versus large scale world building. Screenwriter collaborating with the GM. So I have all these things to help me world build, right? I have them already. I want to compile them into a master document and give them to y'all. Like, here's how to world build cities. Here's how to world build this. Here's how to world build that. And then here's how to GM. Like all of the advice I've ever heard. Oh, you have a party of 3. Oh, you're doing, this genre. Like, oh, it's grimdark. Oh, it's noble bright. Oh, it's super high fantasy. Right. And so you get to combine all the different advice I give. Hey, here's how to run a party of 5. Here are the tricks and maybe optional rules, like everyone take average damage or whatnot, right? I give you all the tips and tricks, everything compiled into like these giant master documents, and those are part of the actual books. Like when I give you the player's handbook, I want to actually have all of the information, all the tips and tricks for the players to actually play well. Not just, oh, here's the handbook, and then you have to go online to find the advice on how to do it well. I want to give that all to you in the actual player's guide. We've had decades of advice out there. It's about time we collected it all in one place and actually put it in a player's handbook, and then the game master's guide, and then the monster manual. We need to actually put all the advice and the cool ideas people have for how to run and how to world build, and just put them in the books themselves instead of just keeping them on blogs and PDFs and YouTube and stuff, right? That's one of my big goals. This will take years, but that's another big thing I offer. All right, now that all that's done, the real reason I'm here, and maybe the real reason you're here, is world building. I have been writing things down. Valley of Resurgence, it says. It's actually the Valley of Bones. I've actually been writing in a real physical notebook again because it's a lot of fun. And so yeah, this page is about the world itself. I'm going to read all this. I'm going to show you guys how I world build because I've given you all snippets on as I world build for other people. This is what I'm doing. It's a little crazier than what I do for other people, right? These are the peoples and groups. The third pillar is the second pillar, powers, all the things to gain in the world, and then mysteries are super cool. Now, if any of my players are watching this, don't. First, let me check up on chat. Sorry, Tiago Nata, I did not answer your question. We were talking about stuff a while ago. Next level nostril, yeah. You need to slap them in the face with it. Maybe bad timing after mentioning the sperm world building. Videos on the dangers of over prepping. What is over prepping? I'm kidding. Yes, I have. Archmaster's Guide or an advanced gaming guide. All of it. So my core books are actually going to be 4 core books. It's your player's guide. It's not just monsters. It's called Challenge and Treasure, which I shouldn't actually reveal that because I haven't copyrighted it yet or trademarked it. But there's the monster book, but it has all of the challenges in it, not just monsters. We have traps in there. We have environmental hazards. We have how to build a cool combat encounter, how to have a cool battle map, right? All of that should be in one book. Like D&D 5e has taken so many things and they put it in the Dungeon Master's Guide when it's like, that should be in your monster book. The monster book is the thing they have at the table running the game. That's where you need to have your tables for how to advice for how to run the game, like the whole monsters know what they're doing. I have that. I intend to read it and take out the good bits and actually put it in my monster book instead of having you have to go to a separate place for it. That's supposed to be in the monster book, right? All trap design, all hazards, everything, how to run encounters, how to build cool, interesting stuff with elevation. That you shouldn't have to go to YouTube for it, and you shouldn't even have to go to the Game Master's Guide for it. That should be in the monster book, right? So, and then the third book is the setting book. I intend to give you like a whole bunch of settings, but like the first core book is like a certain setting, just absolutely chock full of more than you can imagine. I want it to be absolutely epic. And of course, I won't be able to make that for a couple of years until I have a team and a lot of funding and all that, Kickstarters and all. But anyway, that's one of my big things. And then the fourth pillar, mystery. It's the hidden one. It's the one that the GM gets, and that's the Archmaster's Archive. That's like all the advice. That's the philosophy, like how to be a good GM, how to play. A whole bunch of good stuff in there, right? But stuff like treasure is not in there. Treasure should be in the monster book, right? You say, oh, here's an owlbear, and then underneath it says, here's their treasure table. Here's what an owlbear has. You shouldn't have to go to a different book and pull it out and roll on treasure table. Like the monsters themselves, their environments, their lair, the environmental effects, the traps there, and the treasure, and all the magic item, everything should be in that one book. This is the only book you need to prep the monsters and the treasure, and like it's freedom, power, status, mystery. The first book, the Player's Guide, is the freedom book. It's the one that lets you play the game in the first place. Gives you the freedom to play the game. The power book is about everything that has power, all treasure, monsters, etc. The status book is like your relationship with stuff. That is your setting guide, right? Like this is the world you're in, right? And then your mystery book is the Archmaster's Archive. So anyway, I'm going to do some world building with you. So actually, first I'm just going to read you what I have, and thank you for staying, whoever is staying. All right, so. I know this one isn't nearly as bombastic as my previous live streams because I'm not ranting and raving about various things, but this is just a peek into how I world build. So we'll see. All right, Valley of Bones setting workshop. The Lord is generous. All right, so these are my bullet points for the world itself and how I'm building it. Plateaus, inaccessible normally, requires a key. Item, a certain time, maybe a giant, maybe an angle, maybe a certain season that can be caused by druids. It requires some kind of key, some kind of circumstance in order to access. So I like the idea that you have a relatively flat ground and you have mountains to one side and it goes pretty flat over here. Then you have a couple of plateaus that are just raised up almost like the Cliffs of Insanity in Princess Bride. And so they're up there. Like it provides a level of separation because I really like elevation. And so you're like, ooh, what's up there? I wonder what's up there. I like want to get up there. And if you hear stuff, oh yeah, there's a city up there, or there's like a horde of monsters, or there's a dragon with his own horde, or like the plateaus can be large enough that there can be tons of things up there, right? In like different parts of it. But like having like low level play where the players are down in the lowlands and then the upper lands have like, the plateaus have something and then mountains over there, which are more normal, right? I like that idea. Black efflorescence. I noticed some of the concrete in my driveway, it's blackened. I was like, what causes blackened concrete? And I looked it up. Apparently it's called efflorescence, and it's something like having a high water table or something. And I'm like, oh, cool. The black efflorescence, like there's like the black scorched ground after the long night, and that's in high places, and low places don't have it. Cool. So like I can decide what black efflorescence actually does in my world. It's actually the scars from the burning silence. So there was a time in the current setting, like 20 years ago, there was this big long period called the Long Night, and it's where like death itself, which was like just this amorphous being in the sky, came in and just like, hey, I'm taking over the world now, right? And so that lasted a couple decades, and when it ended, there were scars all over the place from death just moving around, and one of death's weapons, I call it the Shadow of Death. One of its weapons was the Burning Silence, which is a concept I got from a Sleep Token song where he just said, the burning silence. I was like, ooh, that's a thing. So it's essentially this invisible, silent fire that just burns stuff. Numenera, I'll have to look into it. I've heard the name a lot, but I really don't know anything about it. That's one of the things. Once I actually get enough funding, I can actually, take time off my job to actually read RPG books, setting books, get inspired, all that stuff. But yeah, I'll have to look into that. Canticle. I at the start of the stream, I answered your question of what an avatar was. I totally missed it last time, but I actually answered it. That's why I started this stream. Okay, cool. All right, so another one is gray slate. So okay, like a little spoiler here, a little behind the scenes look. I actually got the whole idea for the landscape of this setting from my driveway. So I have a bunch of leaves in my driveway that are like a certain shape, and there's like one in the center and one off to the side, and then a whole bunch of leaves up on the other side, but they have like these little, mountain ranges essentially, and there are a bunch of cracks in the ground, and part of it's black and part of it's like bleached white, and there are like some sticks in the corner, and the 3 trash cans are up against the wall, and I'm looking at it, I was like, this looks like a landscape. These look like 2 raised plateaus and a mountain range on the side, and the 3 towers in the distance are like towers of some kind, and the cracks in the ground, what are those? I'm like, oh, they might be ley lines, they might be, actual like fissures in the earth. And so I started I'm taking pictures of all of it and uploading it and like tracing over the like little landscapes of leaves. And it's actually, it's natural looking landscape because the leaves sitting on the driveway got there naturally, wind and water flow and whatnot. So they have all the perfect angles and whatnot. So it actually looks like cool landscape. So that's what I'm building off of, the actual structure there. But then I've been world building for viewers, and a few of them, I'm making all this giant world building stuff for them, but I'm like, this actually applies perfectly to the setting I'm making. So I just took all the world building that I made, and it's like, I'm just gonna put this in my own setting. So it's actually becoming really, really rich, which is another reason I made like 3 of those videos telling people, hey, tell me your world, let me world build for you, because I was like, I'm just world building for me too. Like, this is gonna help my setting. So gray slate. I was looking at the leaves, and there's like this lower layer of dead, gray brown mulched leaves, and then newer leaves on top. They're brown and they're larger and they're just kind of hanging on top, and they have like different shapes and whatnot because water and rain fell over them, and so they're all like in certain little ranges and configurations, and they're all very clearly on top of the other thing. I was like, that looks to me like mountains or a bunch of like slate, a bunch of rocks, like big old giant, like Pride Rock kind of thing in Lion King, big old giant gray stones of various sizes and positions and configurations. And I was like, what if you have all of these stones, like the whole big plateau is just covered, and maybe not the entire thing, right? Maybe more in the center and more to one side or the other. You want to have variety, but maybe large parts of these plateaus are just covered in these stones, and the stones just kind of float off the ground, right? And at a distance, it looks tiny, right? But once you get there, it's like a mile difference, like it's a mile above you, right? But these stones just float up there. So you essentially have, this shaded, you're not really underground, but you're underground. And, like that's where everyone lives and whatnot. And it's this super treacherous vertical mountain range of floating stones up there. And because gravity's all weird after the long night. And so I was like, that's a cool idea. So now I have like the mountain ranges go up, and then there's like this cutoff, and then the rest of the mountain is just floating above that, and they're all great because they're affected by Ethereum and gravity. Because in my world, Ethereum determines time, space, matter, and gravity, and so each planet has its own time and space and matter and gravity, right? Because each planet, the core is made of Ethereum, and so it's like when Ethereum got out after the long night, starts messing everything up. The Ethereum affects that time, that space, that gravity, that thing. In this setting, for the first time, I'm not actually having fixed distances because, time, space, matter, gravity, space itself can fluctuate the same way gravity and matter and time can. So, what does that mean? It means distance. So, oh, it's 20 miles from this town to that town. Ooh, space and distance changed because, gravity changed. Now it's only 5 miles, right? Like, the actual distance between things can change, and that gives you as the GM a whole lot of freedom. Quantum Hexcrawl, yeah. So yeah, that I think is. I'm gonna go tangent here. I was just thinking about this today. Okay, y'all are gonna hear me go off on another one of these random tangents when I want to say something. So there are 2 main types of GMing. The two main styles of GMing and playing that I know of. One is I'm glad you think so, Canonical. I think so too. So one is what I guess I could call the new school, right? It's what a lot of people do in 5e, where the players show up, and unlike the stuff I've been pushing on my channel, they don't actually care about player agency. They just don't care. They don't value it. They're like, oh, that's vanilla ice cream. Yeah, I don't care, right? I'm like, but it's the greatest thing ever. And they're like, It's like, what? So like I can try to convince you. Yeah, it's like, I can. Hey, Blake, it's so cool to see you. Yeah, exactly. There are lots of cool stuff. So it's like, here's the map. Here are all the hexes. This hex is 1 mile. Next day it's 6 miles. Next day it's 10 miles. Right? It can actually change. Still have the same hexes, but it's just So anyway, there's that new school style, and I'm so glad to see Canonical and Blake here. I can talk for hours with you two watching me, knowing that you two are watching me. I got this. Okay, so so yeah, you have this where was I? Yeah, the new school, the 5e thing, where players don't really care about the actual way to play the Arch game. They don't actually want to play the Arch game. They don't really care. They're like, I want to see my characters doing cool things. I just want to, pretty much a movie. I want to sit here and see cool explosions and hang out with friends and do all this cool stuff. It's fun to me. They want to play a party game. They don't actually want to play the Arch game. They don't even want to play an RPG if it did exist. They don't care. They just want to have cool things happen. This is what Matt Mercer does, right? This is what so many 5e GMs do, partly because of watching Matt Mercer, but also just because that is the culture. Matt Mercer didn't start that. That's what people have been doing for a while. And so, there's when I started out, I was doing it like that. I watched Critical Role, I watched other GMs, it's like, cool, I'm gonna do it like this. Let me give you a performance. Let me give you a super cool, fancy world, right? I would tell you, hey, here's your cool adventure, like you have to be on this adventure, right? And then sure, I'll give you a few choices, but really I have this thing planned and this happens, and I would just make it happen, right? And my players loved it because that's actually what they were there for. They wanted to be railroaded. They enjoyed it, right? That style has faded away somewhat. I'm not sure. I think the future holds good things because I think we're gonna actually make the future ourselves, but I'll have to circle back to that question when my mind is clear. Right now, I'm distracted. So, or rather, I'll say focused. So there's that new school where I started there. I did the same thing where it's like we have, I as the GM am here to entertain you, and we're gonna have a cool experience, a cool fight, a cool just experience, right? And any way that the GM can change things to make the experience cooler and better for the players, they'll take it, right? They don't necessarily want to know that you're changing stuff because that kind of ruins the illusion, but they are okay with an illusion as long as it's a fun illusion, right? That's the new school. I can't really say old school. I mean, it's more like the me school. It's the one I purport here. I don't think it's super popular, but it's saying we don't want an illusion of fantasy. We don't want an illusion of adventure. We actually want an adventure. We want it to be really thrilling. We want it to feel really otherworldly. We want everything to have real stakes because that's the kind of stuff that isn't just fun, but it's rewarding. A lot of people say, well, as long as you're having fun. And I say, no. Who wants to have fun? I want my experience to be rewarding. I want it to be tangible, real, right? Fun is hollow. It's like a thin curtain. Rewarding is tangible. I don't want my game to be fun. I want it to be rewarding. I want to walk away 10 years later and still carry something from that and be like, that meant something. Not, oh yeah, you had fun. Fun doesn't last very long. If it's rewarding, it lasts a long time, right? So I purport a much higher level of experience, right? Goals, exactly. So I promote what I think is a higher level experience. Like I want transcendence and found family and real thrill and stakes and heartache and tears. I want everything to just be real. I think that's fantastic. I think that's wonderful. If we can do that, why not, right? But again, a lot more people don't want that. They say that's so much work. Most of them don't even know that exists. They don't even know it's possible. And so they're like, I just want to do cool things. I want to watch my characters do cool things. And if you can make my characters do cool things, totally fine with me. I don't even have to do it. I'm not here to play. I'm here to watch, and I will only play if I have to, right? These are the players that don't know the rules, and they don't care to, because they're like, I'm not actually here to be in charge. You tell me a story, GM. I'm not actually here to do it myself, right? You could call them lazy, or you could just say that they have totally different goals. They're not actually here to play the Arch game, right? And so, I used to be that. I moved over to this. I think this is a lot better. But here's the thing. I've been preambling for a while. my world, my setting, so much of it has actually, like, I built it while I was playing the new school style of play. While I was saying, all right, guys, you want a cool adventure? Here it is. You want a cool setting? Here it is, right? I would give them the stuff, and I would tweak parts of the setting, because, you start out essentially Forgotten Realms-ish. And so, I started out kind of there. It's like, okay, I'm going to tweak this and tweak that. I kept changing things. Why? What was I changing? I was changing things to make it easier for me to tell a good story, or to just manufacture a cool adventure, or rather what I think is the illusion of a cool adventure. I would just manufacture it, and I changed things in the setting to help me do that. And now I'm getting here, I'm like, I actually like this style of play better. I'm looking at most of my setting, most of my world building, I'm like, I made so much of that to solve a problem that now I'm completely abandoning by leaving that play style behind. And then just today, wow, 6 viewers, thank you. And then just today, I was realizing, wait a minute, I think I actually might be able to do the best of both worlds. I might actually be able to take that, essentially railroading, where the GM has a cool story, cool experiences, cool adventure that he wants to give you. I might be able to take that style of GMing and marry it to the style of GMing that I've been talking about on the channel, where you're not a storyteller, you're not the boss, let them run themselves, let them play, let them have total agency. You're not, you have no agenda, you're not trying to make anything happen, you're letting them play. It's like, those seem pretty opposite, like no agenda, let them lead, and then tell them a cool story and give them cool thrills. It's like, how do you do both of these at once? It's because of the work that I've already done on my setting, on the whole world itself. I'm going to give you all some info. I guess it's sneak peeks on what I actually did. Agenda is that fun. So I'm gonna give you all some sneak peeks on a couple things I actually put in my setting to help me as a GM tell a good story and railroad my players, right? Because that's what they want. Social atmosphere may have been your first step in that situation. Let me catch up on comments real quick. I'm about to get there. Thank you all for 7 views and 5 likes. Super cool. You talk about mixed with the new Numenera. 3 days away now. Inconvenient. Will the hobby still be strong after that style is vetted away? You said that style. I'm not sure which one you were talking about, because I was switching between both. Strong means a tide which rises all. Death screams louder every month. Yeah. Even Jenny D is reading D&Ds. Yeah, that's entirely fair. She really, I think, deserved all the poking and prodding she was getting for that one. It's like, 10 years later, you finally read it. Why have we been listening to you this whole time? It's ridiculous. Quite about social atmosphere may have been your first step in that direction. The amazing, crazy things. Yeah. So like you can absolutely play and have a focus on the different pillars, the different quadrants. And those are essentially different styles, right? I actually wrote that in here before I fully understood the quadrants. I wrote in here, it's just 3 different play styles. I wrote, it's the adventurous play style, the collaborative storytelling play style, the authorial storytelling play style, where the GM is an author and he's telling you a story, and then the fantasy life simulator. And so really, if you look at these, fantasy life simulator, I was like, oh yeah, there's definitely a simulation quadrant that you can focus on to the detriment of all. Oh, and then there's like an adventurous quadrant. You can play the game the way it's meant to be played adventurously. And I was like, oh, there's the collaborative storytelling style of play where you're mostly just about the characters and the players and all having fun, right? Oh, and then there's the authorial where the GM is in charge. It's like, these are actually 4 quadrants of the game. I wrote this, I thought they were different play styles of the same game. It's like, these are quadrants of the same game. I wrote that before I actually understood that. So anyway, what was I talking about? Yeah, the sneak peek into my world. Thank you for sticking around. All right, so just one thing, one of my favorite things about my world is natural magic, okay? I look at all the different magic that the classes can do. Guys, this is like the secret sauce. This is the thing that makes my setting absolutely fantastic. It makes it unique. Okay, cool. Yeah, you take care of yourself, Gannical, if you're checking out. So yeah, it's the secret sauce. It's the thing that makes the setting like absolutely phenomenal, makes it fantastic, makes it, in my opinion, better than anything ever. Because if I didn't think it was better than anything ever, I would build it to make it so. Yes, the Parmesan on the sauce. So the thing is, I take all of the magic that in D&D and Forgotten Realms and everything else is wielded by a person, And I said, what if nature itself wielded it? What if the things I mentioned earlier, time, uh, space, matter, and gravity, we'll just stick with time, space, and matter. What if time, space, and matter wielded magic, cast spells like people did? That's something I never saw anywhere. The most I saw was, oh, this is a place of great magical power. There's an obelisk here, or the Druid's tree, or there's a magical zone. It's a wild magic zone, right? A couple of places where magic had affected something, or maybe it was like a battery, a place of power, but I never saw anything in any fantasy setting anywhere where the world itself cast spells like people did. And I thought, this is going to revolutionize. This is amazing. Because guess what? Who plays the world in a D&D game, in a tabletop game? It's the GM. The GM plays the world. When you say, hey, GM, you now can cast any spells, can make any magical effect happen based on a whole bunch of various factors. You have access to all 6 of these caster types, all 6 magic types, all their spells and whatnot. You can, this is part of the world. The weather does it, right? That's like matter. The season, when the seasons change, that's time. When time moves on, different magics take effect. That's essentially what the seasons are. Oh, 3 months later, everything got hot, so someone cast a fireball, right? It's like, it's the seasons really are just magic effects on a timed schedule, right? So I was like, what if we do more fantastic magical effects than just summer, winter, fall, autumn, or summer, winter, autumn, winter, summer, winter, spring, and autumn. And so that's like the big thing. It's like, what if the elements themselves had magic? What if time had magic? What if weather had magic? What if people? What if their narrative? What if their emotions had magic? What if their cities had magic? What if the monsters had magic? What if the stars? What if everything, right? Imbue magic in all of these, but not just make them sitting there, this inert magical thing that you can go and like pull from as a source of power. I mean, sure you can, but it's like, make it actually cast spells. Make it when you walk into the snowy mountains, something happens. When you walk into a city, now you're hit by a magical effect, right? Like the fact that people are there. It's the whole association magic thing where the king and his army are marching along, and the world itself is like, oh, we're the narrative is that there's a king and his army. Well, what's the follow-up for the story? They rested in a castle and a barracks, right? The world itself sees the associations that people have already made, and they're like, oh, well, this is the thing that ought to be, right? It's like it's like an AI, like, oh, I recognize this. This thing should happen, right? And so it just builds the castle and the barracks for the king to sleep in, the king and his men, and then they move on the next day, and the castle and barracks just disappear, or maybe they sit there as permanent relics. Like, that'd be super cool. What's this castle doing in the middle of the field? It's like, 200 years ago, a king stopped for the night here, and the ground just sprouted a castle, right? Maybe it's all like hollow and made of cobwebs or whatnot. Anyway, there's so much world building you can do, but the actual freedom that it gives the GM, character agency to the world, activeness instead of delegating the world to the passive player, exactly. And when you give that to the world, what you're really doing is giving it to the GM. The GM gets to do stuff, and so this was my thing. It's like, hey, I as the GM, when I first started, I'm playing the new school way of playing. It's my job to entertain the players. It's my job to railroad the players. It's my job to give them a cool adventure, make cool things happen all around them, and entertain them, right? They should never be bored. If they're bored, it's my fault. It's not because they didn't exercise agency. It's because I'm not entertaining them, right? That's the new school way of thinking. I think that leads to burnout. I think that's an unfair burden on the GM. That's actually not true. But anyway, that's how I was thinking. So I was like, hey, well, if I am supposed to be doing this stuff and entertaining them, I need more tools. I can't just use Forgotten Realms. It's bloody boring. There's nothing to do. I was like, I have to make a world where the world itself has agency, so that the world itself is my toolbox. So I must fill my toolbox with tools, right? So that's why I came up with all these automatic magical effects, right? I have this like with narrative magic, right? I came up with that essentially as the number one excuse for GM fiat. Like, yeah, I made a whole class about it that uses narrative magic, and it's super cool, but that's not why I came up with it. I came up with the the idea of like, let's make narrative magic its own thing, because I wanted an excuse to make rulings that the players couldn't argue with, right? Even back then, it was about making it diegetic. It was about making their in-game experience the same as their out-of-game experience, right? No immersion breaking, right? It's one thing if the GM says, or if the player says, hey, I have these 2 magic necklaces, I want to put them both on and get both benefits. Is there any reason they can't do that? The rules don't say so. You just put it on. They're like, and I as a GM, I'm like, no, you shouldn't be able to do that. There's balance reasons. I have all these reasons why you shouldn't be able to do that. but I didn't have any mechanism to like tell them this has to be it, except my ruling. I say, no, you can't. And they say, why? I'm like, because it's unbalanced. That's immersion breaking. Oh, we're in a game now. Okay, I'm not a real person anymore. Like, breaks immersion, right? So I had to come up with something to explain why that wouldn't work in the game using the rules of the game, right? The rules of the world, I mean, the simulation. So I came up with the passive narrative magic, where the world itself looks at a human body and says, oh, you're supposed to wear boots on your feet and a crown on your head and a necklace on your neck, right? The world itself has this impression of how things are supposed to be, right? The orderly way of doing it. If you put two necklaces on, the natural narrative magic of the world says, nope, doesn't work. It's not the GM making the ruling, the world says so, right? That way I can give them a ruling, and this may seem really minor. It's like, really? That works? It's like, yes, this is actually really important. I can give them a ruling and say, all right, you put the two necklaces on and both of them, deactivate because the natural narrative magic of the world doesn't allow it. And so I never mention anything out of game. I don't break the spell. I don't break the immersion. They're still asleep. They're like, oh wow, the natural, narrative magic. I wonder how I can get around that, right? I give them an in-game problem. When the GM makes a ruling that the player doesn't like, that is an out-of-game problem. They can't beat that problem. The GM has final say. So that just frustrates them. Like, they're here to conquer and be adventurers and kill the monsters, right? When you make yourself a monster, when you say, here's my ruling against you, even if it's entirely fair, you're not being adversarial at all, that's still something that the player can't overcome. If you put it all in the world and say, oh, the stars did this thing, or oh, the narrative magic doesn't allow this, right? Then they can accept it, especially when you make that same narrative magic help them and say, oh, look, you're trying to sneak into the Baron's estate to free the slaves, right? And you're like, all right, so all of the rebels in the forest, like Robin Hood, all the rebels in the forest, they have all told you, good luck on this, you're going to win, you're going to sneak in there and you're never going to be caught and you're going to get out with the slaves, right? And they speak this narrative, right? And so when you go in, how many people said that? 10 of them? Great, you have a +10 to your stealth rolls because their narrative is helping you, right? That kind of thing. It gives me as the GM so much. Well, first, when it helps them, they can't exactly complain when it hurts them, right? So you want to make sure it's balanced. But like the big thing is all of these different things, especially narrative magic, but so many things give me as the GM the authority, the ability to say, hey, without saying it, I think this. I'm going to railroad them. I'm going to make this cool thing happen because this should happen. And I'm going to explain it away with the in-game world. And, oh, there's natural magic or narrative magic or whatnot. I'm going to explain it away so they're still in the world, so they don't feel like their agency is violated, right? The problem with 5e, new school, is if you just say, no, that doesn't work, they say, why? And if you have no answer, like, because I say so, they don't like it, it breaks immersion, right? With my world, I can actually give them an answer. I can say, because narrative magic, because, the Syncopator, the icon of adventure, because he made this thing happen, right? I can actually give them a reason. They're like, oh, who's that icon? Man, we gotta go fight him. I made him the enemy, not me. It actually keeps it in the world. So something like fudging monster health, right? I think I used to do this, where it's like, oh, the fight's going on too long. They gotta kill the monster. I'm gonna end the fight when it stops being fun, right? And so what you can do with something like narrative, again, I'm going to keep using it because it's actually really potent. It applies to everything. It's just narrative. It's like, that's all we're doing at the table anyway. So if I give the world the power of narrative, I'm giving me the power over the entire world, right? It's super cool. Say you have, a big boss bugbear and, his goblin minions, and the players are in there, and what do the players do in D&D 5e? Nuke the boss. Just, absolute nova, use all your abilities, destroy him. And I'm thinking, well, that's unsatisfying. He's dead in the first round, in the first half of the first round. And I was like, I don't want that to happen. I think it should be cooler than that. So instead of saying, oh, he has double health, like, oh yeah, he's not dead. And the player's like, what, GM, he's not dead. We just did 70 damage and he's a bugbear, right? Instead of that, or, just some other thing that doesn't actually make sense in the world. I'm like, okay, great. The narrative of his goblin buddy say, you're our leader, we'll do anything for you, you're gonna win, you're gonna do whatnot, right? Like the fact, not only of their current narrative, but the fact that he's a leader, he has a certain amount of status, freedom, power, status, mystery. That status, that pillar of status means he's just more powerful because more people serve him, right? The more people serve you, the more powerful you get. I think I made a video on this about, the higher rank you are, the higher status, the larger your body is. You can say, well, the higher rank and status he has, the more HP he has, instead of largeness of body, right? So you're like, cool, the narrative or association magic or the magic of his status give some extra HP, and you can actually explain it to the world. And now the players are like, oh great, it's that narrative. We got to kill these goblins to eliminate the narrative. They're not like, really, GM? They're like, okay, cool, another enemy to kill, right? You keep it in the world, and it just frees you up. If you really want to railroad, if you really want to do the new school thing and take on that burden of entertaining your players, you can do it not only just like, I guess you can say with a clear conscience, but you can do it so much more easily. Just with narrative magic alone, if you say, oh yeah, the world has its own like internal narrative, and it supports its own internal narrative. It makes sure things stay relatively consistent. They stay how they ought to be. Guess what? All you're doing is that's your job. You are the GM. You keep the world staying as it ought to be. So when you say that the world does this, it actually does this with its own power, then it's no longer you. You're acting through the world, and all the blame goes on the world. If you have to make a ruling, you're like, sorry guys, I really hate to do this, but like the world says so. It fixes problems, it solves problems, and that's only one. That's just the narrative magic, 1 of 6. All the other types of magic give the GM some kind of tool to sculpt the game and have some really cool events happen. And you don't have to use this to railroad the players and violate agency, right? You can use all the cool natural magic to just make epic combats. I have this thing where I had this scene once of a bard running through a city, escaping guards, right? And he has his own narrative, right? Because bard is one of the paths of the chanter, right? The chanter uses narrative magic. So the bard, they powered their narrative magic through emotion, right? So they just came from a tavern and they're playing their lute and they're pulling all the emotion from people. They fill up their spell slots, right? It's more like mana points or something. And so they go off, they steal the crown from the castle or something, right? And as they're sprinting along, their narrative, they're like jovial and they have this narrative, this essentially a spell. They're like, I will escape, I will live, I am the greatest bard thief ever. And so as they're doing that, they're like running on a rooftop and they jump down onto some lamppost, right? And as they're jumping, the lampposts just kind of like bend over for him, so he like jumps on each one as he goes, and they're all bending for him, right? Because the world is bending to his narrative, like it's conforming. The world is conforming to his narrative, right? When he says, I will escape, he runs and like the doors open automatically and the gates close behind and lock the bad guys out. His narrative makes things happen, right? You as the GM can use that. You have that power to be like, oh yeah, the narrative makes this thing happen. All this stuff happens. Oh yeah, the ground opens up and the bad guys fall into it. Oh, the cobblestones got loose right there. Oh, a wagon just so happened to be coming by and the bad guys knocked into it, right? You can use narrative magic, and it doesn't have to be a bard. It can be like the players, it can be their friends, it can be the thieves guild. Like you can say whoever you want has this power of narrative magic, and you can apply it to anything. And it just gives you so much power over the world, and it makes it cool. Like you couldn't do that kind of stuff normally in D&D 5e in Forgotten Realms. It's just kind of like, oh yeah, well, I guess a person has to cast a spell. Who casts the spell? It's like, no, it doesn't even have to be bard. It can be one of the player characters. It can be a fighter or a rogue. And he's like, I'm gonna escape here. And then like, the ground like lifts up and it puts him onto a roof, or he gains the ability of super jump because he said he would escape. And so the narrative is supporting, maybe all the townspeople are like, yeah, you'll do it, man, keep going. And so their narrative, their emotion and whatnot helps him, right? Like you can have so much epic stuff going on just with narrative magic. If all I did was make archers and avatars, and I kept essentially all the same classes and spells and everything from D&D, and I just added narrative magic. I was like, yeah, here's the narrative magic. It would be a bestseller. It's so cool. But there are like 5 other whole types of magic. So anyway, that's the big thing that I really, really, really enjoy about the world building, is that it gives me so much power to craft epic things, epic things that are going on. I can make whatever I want, make it super cool, and I can justify it. Be like, I'm not violating your agency. This cool thing happened, right? Of course, now I'm in the headspace where I don't want to use it as an excuse to violate agency. I really do want to respect their agency, but it's there. If I was playing with a group, like one-shots at a convention, I was thinking, it's like, well, I'm this whole, like, keep player agency, but if I was playing a one-shot at a convention and I wanted to make a really good impression, which, by the way, I'm going to a convention in Longview, Texas on March 29th, I was like, if I wanted to leave a super cool impression, like if I was playing for Matt Mercer or like some big shot, right? I wouldn't do the whole, all right, player agency, you do what you want. Like that's not how you give a cool impression. You want to entertain them, right? Like there are times and places, if I'm playing for children, if I'm playing a one shot, if I'm, there are several circumstances when you don't, where the whole player agency thing isn't of paramount importance, right? That's the Arch game. You have to have a consistent group over a long period of time to really play the Arch game, right? Otherwise, you're just playing like a new school version of the Arch game, right? You're playing what most people play. And I think everyone should experience the actual long-term Arch game at least once in their life because it's incredible. But, there are lots of other times to play the other version. So this helps with all those one-shots. It helps with any kind of presentation. It helps with how 90% of people actually play their D&D 5e games. They all play it like it's a perpetual one-shot. It's a perpetual, entertainment show instead of an actual long-term, slow burn, full-on Arch game experience, right? And so it's like this is here for you. It enhances everything just with narrative magic. But there's like the elemental magic, the weather. Like as the GM, you can say, oh, it's summer. Oh, it's noon. The sun is shining. Great. You check the table and like, great. Everyone does double melee damage because everyone is imbued with strength. Because the concept of power is behind fire. The sun is a bunch of fire, a bunch of heat, right? So everyone is imbued with power. Everyone is imbued with strength. So you can all right, the combat goes twice as fast. Everyone does double damage. And they're like, oh wow, all the time. It's like, yeah, all the time. It's like, oh great. Like you can spice up combat. The thing about natural magic in the world is you can spice up any combat. This is another reason why I made this, and the Lord is generous to give me all of this to be able to do it. But I made this natural magic stuff so that I didn't have to prep combats. I want to build a whole bunch of tables and a whole bunch of ideas like cover, falling rocks, or like falling X, like have a table for like the verb and then another table for the thing. So falling chandelier, falling rock, falling meteor, right? Or like rising chandelier, rising rock, rising, like have a bunch of different tables that I roll on each one. Like, okay, so in this combat we're having raised platforms with falling chandeliers. Like, okay, cool. So I build all the natural magic stuff so that I, as the GM, could essentially cast spells. I can make things happen to make the combat interesting, right? And this is something I would still do because this doesn't violate player agency. This is just me as a GM putting on an epic bombastic show. So if the players are in a wide open field, right, and there's some bandits there, and they hop out of the one lone tree or a little grassy knoll, and they hop up and they're like, all right, we're gonna rob you. It's like, okay, we could roll combat, we could roll initiative, we could do this whole thing. By the way, I don't have initiative in my system. It's fast and smooth, and you're not sitting there for 2 minutes rolling dice. You just get right into it. But anyway, I was like, all right, I could just have this boring combat in a wide open grassy field. And thank you all for liking and all that, liking the stream. Or I could spice this up. I could make it interesting. But I was like, it's impossible to pre-plan every encounter to make it epic and cool, right? I want every encounter to be epic and cool, but I cannot pre-plan all of them. So I was like, natural magic. We'll just stick with weather. We don't even need to use elements. We don't even need to use narrative. We'll switch to the elemental one, the biome, the weather, the season, all of that, right? So you jump in, and so I'm like, okay, cool. There's a combat. So it's not just like the fire of the air itself. Like the sun. It's also combat. Combat itself activates magic because, well, first of all, it activates narrative magic because there's a narrative about a conflict. But again, we aren't going to touch that. We're just going to go here with elemental and stuff like the 4 pillars: freedom, power, status, and mystery. It's like, oh, it activates power. Power is tied to fire, sure. So when you all start to you start combat and you are pitting your power against each other and there's life on the line, then that concept of like, oh, you have brought power into the world in this spot, great. What other things are associated with power? Well, swords, spikes, pit traps, cover, blah, blah, blah. Like anything that would happen in a battlefield. Explosives, like in video games, you have explosive barrels. Cool. All of these things are associated with combat. So therefore, when you start combat, they just spawn, right? It's like when the king is there in a field and he's tired and he wants to rest, the castle spawns. When you start a combat things spawn, right? I, with this system, can turn any combat ever in any environment into something epic immedially. I can say, all right, cool. We start combat. I roll on a couple of tables. Like, cool. There are 2 explosive barrels here, not actual explosive barrels, but like two hazards, 2 activatable hazards. There's cover over here. There's like a raised platform. The ground just like shoots up. There are spikes all in this place. This part of the ground is difficult terrain, and there's like a +1 battle axe like lodged in the far corner over there of the map, and then there's like a flame tongue over here, right? So everyone's like scramble. I want the flame tongue. I want the high ground. I want like, oh, watch out for the traps. And like, oh, there's a swinging blade thing. Like, you can use narrative magic. You can use elemental magic. You can use there are a lot of different types of magic in there. You can use any and all of them to turn any battle into something epic. You can be in a tavern and be like, all right, cool. A tavern brawl breaks out. Great. If it's like if it's to the death and people are actually fighting each other in the tavern, great. The legs of the stool turn into swords. Like, you pull one out, you pull off the leg of the stool, and it turns into a sword as you break it off. Because like, oh, there's combat here. Combat that falls under power, so we're gonna give you power. We're gonna give everyone combat abilities, right? Because you're here. Or you start combat and everyone's swords just burst into flame because fire is tied to power. Conflict is part of power, and so you can just do so much. You can do whatever you want. You can just take you have to actually understand what the concepts are and whatnot, but it's easy after you get the hang of it. It's like you can make any combat fantastic, and then you start putting in monster types and other elements and magic types. It's like, well, what if you're fighting undead? Well, they're all about decay and death and whatnot. So you get there and the ground just starts to fall in 6 feet and graves. And so it's like, oh, we have to watch out for all these pits. And then, maybe these twisting, dead trees start to grow. It's like, oh, wonderful, right? And then the cool thing is this is all association magic or narrative magic or elemental magic. This can all just fade after you're done. You may go into the tavern and everything's like flaming swords and explosions and whatnot. And then the combat's over and everything just oh, it's a wooden stool leg in your hand and not a sword anymore, right? Everything can just go back to normal. You do not have to permanently alter your world building. Like, oh, great, I said that this crazy battlefield happened over here. I guess it's permanent. You don't have to. It's totally versatile. You can do whatever you want with it. I am so looking forward to giving you all these tools because this just lets you improvise the coolest things at any time, the coolest combats. You don't even know. You can take in the players. Take into account the players' classes and whatnot. If there's a cleric there, it's like, oh, okay, cool. You use light and healing magic and whatnot. Great. There's this little font, this altar of light that spawns in that part of the map, right? And so it's like, oh, okay, cool. I can go over there and cast spells unlimitedly or increase their level or refill my magic and whatnot. You're like, okay, only for the duration of the combat. There's a potion right here, or a fountain of potions. And it's like, oh, we want to run over and control the potions. You can make it King of the Hill. You can make it capture the flag. I think Pointy Hat had a video a while ago about turning combat into sport and giving it optional objectives. Lots of people talk about having optional objectives. This lets you put those in without prep. It's so important. My intention, what I'm doing with this, is letting you run absolutely epic combats without prep. You just have some tables and stuff, and you just roll on. The amount of time it takes them to roll initiative is the amount of time it takes you to do this. Although, I don't have initiative in my system; it's faster. I don't have you rolling initiative and adding numbers that I've been organizing them. That takes forever. But yeah, the fact that you have automatic goals, you have automatic things to do, you have hazards, ticking clocks. You have so many things, and you take into account the characters and their classes and maybe even their race. You have all these tables to roll on. You don't have to roll on every single one of them. You can just roll on 6 of them and leave the other 14 out, right? Or you can prep and roll on all of them, right? It's up to you. You're like, okay, we haven't rolled on these tables in a while, and you roll on the narrative magic table or the elemental one or the biome or this. There's so much stuff. I haven't written any of this yet because it's all in my mind. It's like, oh yeah, this is going to be absolutely epic. I just don't have time to do it, which is why I'm starting a YouTube channel to actually get it out there so I can finally get people to fund me and Kickstarters and all that. Anyway, 9 viewers. Thank you all for liking. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. I'm not done yet, but I'm just thanking you for watching the stream. So, it's the whole natural magic thing, the way that natural magic actually can just activate on the GM's whim lets them make the coolest encounters ever, but also cool world building and cool just anything. It gives you the freedom to just do some epic stuff. And without prep, it's easy, super mega easy. You just roll on some tables or just pick some items that you like, that you think are interesting. Super mega cool. I'm going to catch up on the chat now. All right. Rewarding goals. Have fun. Having an entire quad. All right, Parmesan. You are giving character agency to the world. Activeness. I like the 1 crown, 1 necklace, 2 earrings, 2 bracers, 10 rings, etc. Limit of item slots. I find it greatly comedic. You also used the crown example as I typed that. Yeah. Jay Aguilar said, this sounds awesome, but to an extent, it sounds like an excuse to blame unfair things on an alter ego, unless I'm missing something here. You're missing something slightly. It's not about doing unfair things. You can absolutely abuse the process. The goal here is to do epic things, is to do really cool, phenomenal, fantastic things in combat and so many cool stuff, and use the world as an excuse. It's really about making good and fair rulings that you would make anyway, but saying, hey, this good and fair ruling you can't be angry at me about. Be angry at this icon or this entity or this king or whatnot, right? And so, yeah, it's like you can abuse anything. You can be a bad GM with these rules or a bad GM without these rules. But this stuff helps the good GMs. It makes it a lot easier. I like the idea of the rogue of the group sighing and wishing for a dungeon only for the most ancient and deadliest of Lich's tombs to spawn and envelop the rogue and company. You could do that if you wanted. Of course, you want to make sure that you're not taking off all your players, because that could be violating their agency. It's like, oh, I want this thing to happen, so it does. It's like, well, maybe if the players are okay with that sort of thing and they know what they're getting themselves into. A lot of this is just expectations and social contract. It's like, hey, in this setting, as we play, anytime I hear you say something and I think it's a good idea, I reserve the right to make it happen instantly. As long as everyone knows what they're getting into, then that's fine, right? Otherwise, it can feel like GM fiat, even if you say, oh, it's natural magic, and they're like, yeah, right. You don't want to, like, even if you explain it like, okay, it's natural magic, but darn, I didn't want to be in the bottom of a dungeon, it can still kind of be a party crasher. So, of course you already knew that. I'm just saying, be a good GM. Much to the chagrin of everyone else involved, including the Lich, yeah. Message retracted. Okay, cool. So yeah, there's that. Thank you all for hanging out and watching. It looks like y'all like the late night streams. Caught the bit about narrative magic, symbolism, and the symbolic world as a logic for magic. Yes, that is one of the magic types. I was actually thinking today that, like in my world cosmology, but also real life, I think that everything in our experience falls into freedom, power, status, and mystery. I think like every desire we have, all the items, all the stuff we have, it's all freedom, power, status, and mystery. Either one or more of those. And so I was thinking, well, if that's true, that means narrative magic and the arcane thought magic also technically fall into it-ish. So like I separate them and make them distinct classes and whatnot, but there is overlap because they all exist in the same world. They're all going to be touching things. There's going to be a little bit of overlap. And like the actual practices of how they got there and what they do are different. But there's always going to be a bit like, oh, you deal with concepts. It's like kind of hard to avoid concepts and thoughts when you're dealing with magic, right? You're thinking about it, right? And so it's like one person, do you pull the specific concepts from the plane of thought, like from the stars? Does the other guy pull concepts from the elements, or does this other guy pull concepts from his narrative, right? We're all touching concepts, right? The druid uses the concept of healing. The cleric uses the concept of whatnot, right? Everyone is using concepts, but it's like how you do it. So there is some overlap, but it's acceptable to me. I don't think there's any way to really avoid that. Listening to catch up at 175 speed feels like breaking warp 9. Dude, I have tried to listen to myself on double speed. I'm the one speaking. I know what I say. I cannot listen to myself on double speed. I listen to everything on double speed. That's why I talk like this. I've been listening to everything on double speed for like 10 years. A long time. Yeah, it's you're gonna kill yourself doing that, but on magic being Mistra, horse show theory on magic being Mistra. I don't do any gods. I don't do any Forgotten Realm stuff. There's no goddess of magic. There's no Mistra or Mistara or whatever her name is. All right. Does anyone have any questions? Any topics you want me to cover? It can be absolutely anything. We are open to suggestions. You can talk to me about rules, certain classes. What's wrong with a certain class in 5e? You can talk about world building. You can ask me about my world building, my rules. I mean, I will open the book and read you rules if you want to know, right? Absolutely anything is on the table. Nine viewers. Thank you all for liking the stream and hanging out with me. I appreciate it. 9 is a very important number. 9 is very cool. There are 9 words in my name for the whole world, which I haven't mentioned yet, but there are 9 words in it. 9 is an important number. 9 planets, 9 words, 9 races, all sorts of stuff. If you want me to talk about the horseshoe theory on magic being Mistra, you're gonna have to explain that a little more. How far along is your game, Buddha King? All right. Let's see. I won't be able to give you a percentage. So if we are talking about, right, we have to qualify that. if we're talking about the player's guide, I have the conditions done on the back of the book. I have the core mechanics, your D20, your attributes, your aspects. I have all of the skills done. I'm like minor tweaks during playtesting. Of course, playtesting, you're going to tweak lots of stuff, but the skills are done. I have exploration done, resting done. Everything in combat is done at least conceptually or written. It's not necessarily written down, but it's like it's in my documents, right? I just have to find all the different things and put them there. So all the main way you play the game is done. Social interactions are done too. All your character creation, like the actual the structures of character of your background, how it's made of 4 parts, and then you have your pursuit, the structure of your pursuit, the stats of there, how you pick your race, how you pick your class, your sub-race, subclass, the actual structure of everything is done. Really, pretty much, the only 2 things not done are the actual class features of more than half the classes and subclasses, right? So I have 12. What exactly? Let me give you some actual numbers here. So I have the skirmisher class, and I believe I have 2 out of 4 subclasses. All of the classes in the base book have 4 subclasses. So I have 2 out of 4 there. I have 2 out of 4 skulk. I have nothing done on Wayfinder class. Absolutely nothing. I mean, lots of concepts, of course. I know what it's going to be, but no actual specifics. The Armiger has 2 subclasses. The Brute has, I think, 3. The Bulwark, I think, has 1. The Chanter has 1. The Conduit has 1, and the Devout has 1. And the Tetrarch has 1 subclass, right? So 1 out of 4. All of these are supposed to be 4. The numbers I mentioned were that many of 4. So that's what I actually need the team and the time to do, is just build all the class features. And I build class features light and fast. It's just, testing them, that's the thing. I need players. I need people to actually test the game, which, by the way, description, Discord. Join our Discord, and you can be part of small play tests. And the higher patrons get access to more and more stuff. But that's eventually. I'm still working out all that. So, yeah. That's the first thing that needs to be done, is all of the classes, all the class features and all their stuff. The second thing that needs to be done is just the economy, the equipment. Like, I actually want to have a usable, balanced economy. No more is a wooden cart going to be 25 gold, and a sword is a silver piece, right? It's like the economy. Like that's going to take a lot of work. That's going to take spreadsheets. That's going to take so much cross-referencing of not just realism. I'm not looking to be medieval accurate, right? Because I'm not a historian. I don't care about the accuracy. I care about the playability. I care about if it makes sense in the world. I don't want players scratching their head like, why does rope cost that much? No, I want it to actually make sense. And then actually, technically, third thing, spells. So I need a bunch of class and subclass features. I need to do the economy, or someone needs to do the economy. And then I need to come up with pretty much all of the spells, which in my system, spells are bloody small, like bloody simple. I take, like, first of all, it's not that hard to take all of 5e spells and convert them over and just do it cleanly and with few words. Like, I'm gonna pull up just a couple examples. We'll say 5e spell. Let me pull up just a couple. All right, difference between 5e and A and A. No, that's a different thing. Give me, all right, 5e spells to A and A. That's just the structure, not the individual examples. Where are you? All right, whatever. I had a note on here about, like changing the 5e spells, like copying the 5e spells and rewording it in my way, so it does the exact same thing, but it's reworded simply with few words. If you have ever played 5 Torches Deep, you look at their spells, so minimalist, so simple, it's like a single line, right? I do a little more than that. I think there's room for misinterpretation with those, so mine is somewhere between 5 Torches Deep and 5e. Casting spells is not a burden, it doesn't take forever, because it's fast, because the spell descriptions are small. They're really, really, really bloody small. I think they're on average 5 times smaller than 5e. I looked and I copied 10 spells. I counted the words for 5e spells, and then I copied them over in my thing, and I counted their words, and it was 5 times fewer, like over the course of 10 spells or something. So 5 times smaller. You read it and it tells you what you do. It's like, oh, dex or con save for half. It's super simple. It's not like the creature must succeed on a dexterity save or receive. It's like, no, you can say, 3d6 fire damage, dex save half, dex save / half. That's the same information. You don't need to say a creature must succeed on a dexterity. That is so long. You can look at them at a glance. You can actually fit all your spells and their descriptions on one character sheet. You don't need to have like cards and stuff. Like if you have to pull out cards, the spells are too long and too complex, right? So it's really, really simple. And so it shouldn't be that. It shouldn't take too long to do this. When I have time, I crank it out so fast. Let's see what a couple people said. Any new monsters you're eager to share? Hold on. Let me go above that real quick. If you don't have initiative in your system, what do you do instead? I will tell you about initiative. Thoughts on 5e versus 2024 rules changes, making Ranger feel like Hunter from World of Warcraft and Paladin feel like a Cavalier. All right, cool. I'll get to that too. Luck feat as plot device. Very 7 Cs. Having new monsters. Okay, very 7 Cs. Okay. Are each of your 4 subclasses more correlated to a different talent out of your tenet out of your 4 pillars? That's quite astute of you. I'll get to that. Buddha Kane, check out the Discord. Cool. Most of my players aren't concerned with the economy. It generally doesn't bother the players. It bothers the GM. That's generally what I want to solve this for. Because me as a GM, other GMs are like, okay, yeah, that shouldn't be so cheap. You buy 500 of them, and okay, it's like we want to be able to balance stuff out. Narrative mechanics, yes, interesting, yeah. Dinner time here. Thanks for the live stream. You're welcome, Mike B. Thanks for hanging in and dropping. Still 10 minutes behind. You'll catch up, man. All right, let me go up and ask some questions. So, if I don't have initiative in my system, what do I have instead? Jay Aguilar. I hope I'm pronouncing that Aguilar, somewhat correctly. Okay, so I have a couple different versions. This is a big thing that I think sets Arches and Avatars apart from a lot of other systems. Is there are a ton of optional rules, but like I know the first thought is like, oh great, a lot of choices to make to even start the game. Not really, because they're in categories, they're in sections. I don't have it written here. It's still in the back end of my site, but it's like, hey, if you want to play this genre, here are the optional rules, like from more deadly to least deadly, right? Oh, if you want to play Grimdark, here are Grimdark rules. This one affects travel, this one affects combat, this one affects social interaction, this one affects plots and whatnot. Oh, you want to do Noble Right? Here are the optional rules that affect this, that. Like it gives it in categories, so you don't have to like read 10,000 optional rules. You're like, all right, I am playing with 5 players. Oh, there's a section for optional rules for large groups with 5 players. Oh, average damage. Oh, blah blah blah. A certain type of initiative, fast initiative. Oh, that's cool, right? I think like I also want to do Grimdark, and like okay, here are the optional rules for Grimdark, right? So you don't have to read all of them. You just mix and match the ones that you want, and then you read those and you pick the ones you want, right? Really, really cool. It lets you always get the type of game you want because the rules actually support the gameplay. I don't force everyone to play the same type of game with all the same rules. It's like no, I have like 2 or 3 different editions of the game in one book, but just simply, it's still the same normal size book. It's just a bunch of different, all the different optional rules, all the different genres, like power fantasy, low fantasy, blah blah blah. It's all in there. So anyway, what I have a couple different initiatives. One is what I guess I'm calling archetypal initiative. It's where you have your 4 archetypes. You have the explorer, the explorer, the warrior, the king, and the mage, right? And so you have the classes in each of them. Each archetype has 3 classes. And so you have your skirmisher, skulk, and wayfinder. Those are within explorer. Your armiger, brute, and bulwark are within warrior, right? So you have all those. It's simple. The explorer archetype goes first. If you are playing, a skulk or a skirmisher or a wayfinder, those are all sneaky or fast or fast-moving characters, right? You go first in initiative automatically, and then the warriors. And then the king classes, and then the mages, right? This is cool because it gives mages more time to think about their spells, because like, hey, you always go last, because your character's sitting there pulling up their spells, and they're thinking about, like, it takes a while, so you go last in initiative. It makes sense in narrative, and it actually makes sense, for it helps the game flow, right? And the way you do it with monsters is simple. You look at goblins, but like, oh, they're small and fast. Explorer archetype. Oh, it's an owlbear. Warrior archetype. Oh, it's a caster. The other archetypes, right? Is it like a druid or a shaman or whatnot? King. Oh, it's any sort of arcane mage? Mage archetype, right? So the players, and they just go, right? It's more like here's another tweak on it. You can have it be simultaneous initiative where all the goblins and all the PCs in the Explorer archetype all go at once, or you can just roll a simple d6. Whoever gets higher goes first, right? Side initiative, right? And you can do side initiative per initiative group, right? So all the Explorers go, the goblins win initiative. Goblins go first, and then the PCs. Now Warriors, you roll a d6. Oh, you got higher. Warriors go first, and then them. So everyone's pretty much going simultaneously. It's not like this entire side goes and then this entire side goes. It's not that dramatic, right? It's just switching, but it's fast, and it gives the guys at the end, the casters, because the casters go last, and the more complex casters go dead last. It helps, right? But I was playing with a player, and she's like, I like to buff my allies first. Can I go first? It's like, sure. We can do another simple thing, which is hardly a special initiative system. It's just like, someone roll a die and I'll roll one. Oh, you got higher. You go first. Side initiative, right? It's super simple. But with that first, side initiative, say the players win and one PC gets to go, then one of my monsters or monster groups goes, and then them, and then me, and then him, and then me, and then him, and then me, right? Until everyone's done, right? It's simple. It's not total side initiative, because total side initiative where they all go and then they all go, it either leads to an absolute wiping the floor with the monsters, or a TPK where all the monsters go at once, right? It's not that usable. But if you just roll in, it's super simple. Anyone rolls a d6 or a d20 or something, right? I roll at the start of combat. All right, I go first. And then one of my monsters goes, and then a PC goes. And then one of mine goes, and then a PC goes, right? Super simple. Ridiculously fast. And, it's not that much different from the whole initiative thing where, here are all the people. But, you weren't losing anything by losing the 5e initiative. Because the 5e initiative wasn't valuable because it didn't give any agency, right? So if you take it away, you're not taking away agency. Therefore, you're not taking anything away, anything valuable, right? So having just an every other person, you roll initiative once to see who goes first, and then it's every other person. Super easy, super simple. So there are several initiative systems in there, but none of them use your dexterity modifier, because dexterity is not a god stat. It's not the best thing in the world. All of the stats, in my opinion, as much as I can make them, all of the stats matter almost to everyone. They're actually really valuable, to everyone. Really cool. I have a video about this at the end of March, I think. But you don't get extra attack at level 5 or something if you're a fighter. You get a second attack when you have a 15 dexterity. Because your dexterity is so high, you're so fast, you get an extra attack. It actually makes sense for the character. That's a big thing that I do in A&A, is I make things make sense. No one can tell me why I get an extra attack. I'll tell you why. It's because they needed it for balance. But in the system, in the simulation, in the world, it doesn't make any sense. Why do I attack a second time at level 5 every single time, no matter... Really? It's no, in my system, you actually get to choose. You get agency. Would you like to put your ASI to Dex and attack an extra time? Or would you like to put it to Strength to have access to more damage, more attack roll, the various other things Strength can do, your toppling, whatnot. You likely get more surplus and therefore more weapon maneuvers if you have higher strength, right? So there's a balance to everything. You can also wield two-handed weapons when you have a 15 strength, and you can't do it otherwise. So it's you want to wield those one-handed weapons twice, or wield a two-handed, or it's up to you. But there's actual choices to where you put your ASIs and stuff. So that's how I do it. Let's go to the next question. I think I answered that one sufficiently. Let's see. Thoughts on 5e versus 2024 rule changes making Ranger feel like Hunter from World of Warcraft and Paladin feel like a Cavalier. Okay, I have not looked at 5.24 or 5.5 at all. I'm simply not interested. I think it's probably bloody boring. But I'll take your word for it. They made the fighter feel like a hunter. I think I heard that or not. The ranger. They made the ranger feel like the hunter. I think I heard that. They buffed it. Great. I don't think that there should be a hunter class, a monster hunter class in the game, because that's literally what everyone does in Dungeons and Dragons. It's your job to hunt monsters. You're a monster. You make one class good at it. Great. Now you're saying you have no niche. Everyone does your job. They wanted to buff him, and they just doubled down on the one thing that everyone else had, and they're like, you do it better. It's well, they can't make him do it too much better, or else he would be the default class that everyone would play in when they're fighting monsters. So it's no. I think the idea of a monster hunter is a guild. It's a guild, the hunter's guild, not a class. Anyone can be monster hunter. You can be a wizard and sign up at the guild, right? And be like, hey, I want to hunt monsters, right? I have a whole system of 12 guilds. There's like the the Explorers Guild where you actually go out and like find things in the world. You get XP for that. There's the the Skulks Guild. You get XP when you go out and like it's the Thieves Guild essentially. You bring gold into them, you give them gold, and you get XP. There's the Wayfinders Guild. You find special like places of power of elemental and natural power in the world, and you bring back the maps and the whatnot, and you get XP for that, right? I have a bunch of different XP systems for different settings and genres and power types and all sorts of stuff. It's again, the game is very customizable. It's like, hey, here are all these XP systems. You use the one you want for your genre. This one is recommended for this genre. This one for this genre. And then you like, oh, I'm looking for a really heavy story focused game. It's like, cool. This XP system works perfectly for that, right? It's tailor made to anything you want. It's not one size fits all. I'm not making one game that I'm trying to please everyone with. You can't do that. I'm putting like 12 different games. Yeah, they all have the main center, baseline. You have the same classes and class features and whatnot, but a bunch of tweaks. Oh, here's the XP system. It's different. Oh, here's this. It's different, right? It encourages you to do to play in certain ways, and it really supports any play style you want. Of course, this is mostly conceptual. It'll take me years to actually build this, but that's the idea. That's the thing. That's what I need funding and all this for. Give me a couple years, and it'll be the best thing you've ever seen. So anyway, something like the Monster Hunters Guild, that's something for like the Brute. It's like the Brute's primary guild is like, we go out and hunt monsters, right? The Armiger might be finding weapons. Like, hey, if you go out and find magic items, every magic item you bring back will give you XP, right? For the Bulwark, it might be clearing dungeons or protecting civilization, being a ranger. Like, what is a ranger? They guard the border between civilization and the wilderness, right? That's a job. That's not a class. The wizard can be guarding the border between civilization and the wilderness, right? The druid, the bard, the hunter, like anyone can do this. It's a job. It's not a class. I think they should take the ranger and gut the entire thing. Actually, they shouldn't. I already did it. I have the Wayfinder, which is a lot cooler. So yeah, like there's the Chanters Guild. It's like, hey, we want you to go out and find ancient historical relics and artifacts, ancient tomes and texts, everything that has narrative in it. Find it. Every book you bring us, you get XP, right? The conduit druid stuff. They say, hey, you can get XP as a druid doing this, or maybe you give XP to everyone. Depends on, again, the optional rule, but the optional rule that you're using. But it's like, hey, if you go out and like cleanse parts of nature and whatnot, you get back them and they give you XP. The devout, like the cleric thing. It's like, hey, we want you to go out and like kill fiends and cleanse, evil sites and make holy sites and erect temples and altars and blah blah blah, right? You get XP for that. For the Arcanist, they're like, hey, we want you to go out and find spells or like study the stars or this or that, like find esoteric knowledge. For the Numinous, they're kind of like the underground cabal. And it's like, hey, we want you to find maybe some soul shards from people and collect them. Take these soul gems and bring them back filled. We don't really care where you get them. Or like maybe you can go out and like open like weaken the walls between our plane and another one so we can open portals more easily. And if you're a numinist, you're like, yes, absolutely. I'd like to have more like a lower chance of failure when I prepare my spells in the morning. Yes, please. And then the Tetrarch, it's like, hey, go out and like find the element, find the snow from the highest mountain and bring it to me, and I'll give you XP, right? You have a bunch of different guilds. And sure, they can give you money, they can give you resources, magic items, or they can give you XP, right? So if you want to have an XP system that encourages them to go out and explore, and there are 12 different types of exploration, from magic item hunting to treasure hunting to slaying monsters to clearing dungeons to finding the snow on the top of the mountain. If you want to encourage them to, pick whatever they want to do and go out and explore it, there's a magic system for it. I have another one, not a magic system, XP system. I have another XP system where it's tied to your goals, values, obligation, and weakness. All of those are your motive, right? What motivates you? Your goal motivates you. Your values motivate you. Your obligation motivates you, and your weakness motivates you. You're more motivated to not have that happen to you, right? So I have this thing where you need 4 XP to level up. Anytime, it's kind of like 5e ideals, bonds, and flaws, but it's goals, values, obligation, and weakness. So every time you have a significant interaction with one of these, once you get a significant interaction with all 4 of them, boom, you have your 4 XP, you level up, right? So this is more for a story-focused game where you're really like, hey, the players say, I'm really caring about my character. I want my character to like go through this character arc and do this cool stuff. So you say, okay, sounds like this XP system is good for this game. You want to really engage with your character and their backstory and what they want. And like, yeah, all right, cool. You pick a goal. It's like, oh well, I want to, slay all the orcs in the whole land. Like, okay, what are your values? My values are, peace and prosperity. It's like, and what's your obligation? Well, I must serve the king because he's the one who gave me my suit of armor and my training. And what's your weakness? Well, I'm actually, working with a fiend to give me this great power. It's like, okay, cool. Anytime you have a significant interaction with one of these, well, like when you do all four, you level up, right? And you have to keep doing all four again and again. And of course, they can change. If one weakness goes away, like, oh, you're no longer in contact with the fiend, you replace it with another one, right? And so this requires you to actually have story moments and engage with the aspects of your character, the motives of your character, in order to level up, right? That XP system works well if you care a lot about stories, right? It's versatile. There's so many options, so many optional rules, so many things to help you play the type of game you want. That's another reason A&A is just like, it's phenomenal. I have all these things in my head, and very few of them are actually written in the playtest. This is tiny compared to what the actual game is going to be. But yeah, I think that answered someone's question. Who was I talking to last? Tools for improvising narrative elements. Feel like I'm reversed. Tools for improvising narrative elements. What most rules books, solo gaming, hex scroll generators, etc. don't seem to do yet is give GMs tools to build their own tables to suit their own settings. Yeah, that is true. That probably wouldn't be in any core book. It'd probably be some optional thing later if I ever did make something like that. But yeah, if it's a niche that needs filling, it might as well one of these days. My bandwidth absorption capabilities are strong. Brought to you by the repeated use of the letter A and number 9, pretty much. Going to look up the cartomancy of numerology of that letter. All right then. Economy, he's brave. Yeah, I am not looking forward to it. It's definitely going to be like, okay, I have to make an economy. It's going to be tough, I know. 6 different styles of spellcasting, exactly. Each magic school has their own, each class has their own type of spells. Actually, technically, each path, there are 2 paths per class in the core book. Each path has their own type of spells. And then each subclass has their own specific list of spells and spellcasting mechanics. They're actually each unique, and they're no more just, oh yeah, I'm a wizard and I'm like every other wizard out there. It's like, no, there's lots of variety. You cannot get bored of playing casters in my system. We're going to go back to what you were saying. Slowing down to process the idea of no initiative. Yeah, it sounds like you're giving options for a lot to be done with your game. Yeah, kind of. It's more like a game with an accompanying game engine. Archetypal initiative. I thought that one was cool, but of course not for everyone. No rolling, you don't have to think about it. Everyone goes on the same initiative every time. Everyone knows what's going on. It's really simple. It's the simplest initiative. And it reminds you of the archetypes. It reminds you of what class and what archetype you're in, right? I really like it. I wish more people, more of my game group were into it. But the one I'm currently using with my current group is just, someone rolls a d20. Okay, you go first, then I, then you, then I. Super simple. That might be the easiest and simplest one. You get to roll. You get to go first, maybe. It's still something. So I think that one's pretty decent too. I think that your logic against Hunter is applicable to pretty much the entire class's characters, the entire classed characters paradigm. Oh, the fact that the characters have classes, is that what you mean? The class tells you your character concept, replacing character idea and story and concept with only the manufactured packaged class fantasy. I think it's inherently corporate. Sounds useful. As a veteran player, I agree that classes are too constricting, but most new players need those constraints and guardrails. Classes lead to more new players. I absolutely agree with both of you. I think that new players benefit greatly from classes, and I think that veteran players would like a more custom class system, which eventually, Lord willing, I will be able to offer as a supplement to arches and avatars and say, hey, the base game, which is the stuff that you give to newcomers, has classes. Well, first it has archetypes, right? Like instead of saying, all right, 12 classes, pick. It's like, hey, 4 archetypes, pick. Oh, you picked that one? Great. 3 classes, pick. All right, from that class, there are 2 paths, pick. All right, now there are 2 subclasses, pick, right? You never give them an option of 12, or, like if every class has 4 subclasses, that's 12 times 4. You don't say, all right, there are 48, possible things you can choose. I say, no, choose one of 4, now one of 3, now one of 2, now one of 2. That way you funnel them down, and so they're never overwhelmed by choice at the start, right? Of course, they can look at every single class if they want to, right? But the way to onboard new players is to give them bounded, singular choices, and not just overwhelm them with absolutely everything. All right, tell me about your character. I'm a first level human wizard. You don't really like the mechanics first, Canticle? Oh yeah, as I was saying, the classes and whatnot are great for new players, but having a custom class system where it's kind of like Skyrim, where you just build your class as you go. It's total custom. You should have every time you level up, you get a perk point or 2 or 3 or 4. Like that's actually another optional rule. When you level up, how many perk points do you get? Are you doing high fantasy, epic fantasy? You get 5 perk points. Doing super low gritty fantasy, 1 perk point. 3 might be in the middle, right? Like that's another little optional rule, a little tweak, right? Stuff like that is everywhere in my head. It's not written in this book, but it's everywhere in my design documents and all the stuff. It's like these are the various little tweaks you can make to give people the exact experience they want, to make sure the simulation and the gameplay support whatever experience they're after. I think when you play Arches and Avatars, when it's done, you will be able to have the greatest experiences ever, because the 4 quadrants work in perfect harmony. The rules of the simulation, the rules of the game, and the other stuff that you bring to the table, everything just fits perfectly. It just agrees. It's not like 5e and a lot of other things out there that just aren't. It just doesn't agree. Maybe this is balanced and that's balanced, but they aren't balanced with each other. And so I think Arches and Avatars, when I have a team, when I'm actually able to do it, I think it'll be phenomenal. I think it'll be revolutionary. I think people are going to look at that and say, that is the new standard of stuff. And Lord willing, that's what it's going to be. And y'all are here at the ground floor. Look at there. In 5 years, you'll be able to look at that and be like, we were there. First subscribers, first patrons. We supported him. He looks like this, sounds like this, comes from this sort of culture, and is generally motivated by that. And the character sheet emerging from engagement with setting and meaning reacts to where the character comes from. Yeah. That's interesting. I haven't yet considered where the proper place to start character creation is. I know a lot of people have a lot of preferences. You could just chalk it up to player preference, which everyone does, which in most cases is a cop-out, saying, I don't actually want to think about the best way to do something. Whatever, as long as you're having fun. Player preference, right? It applies in some cases, but a lot of cases it doesn't apply in. So, let's see. When you're... I don't think it's so much up to player preference. I think it's up to the type of game you're running, your genre, your setting, all of that. If the GM's like, all right, guys, we're running a super story, intrigue, heavy focused thing, you should not start with your stats. You probably should start with your character, who they actually are. But if the GM is like, all right, we are just playing the adventure game and we don't much care about all the rest, then yeah, you'd be kind of silly to start anywhere but your stats. So it really depends on your quadrants, on your genre, on your GM, what the players have agreed to, your social contract, the tone, the setting, everything that you've actually agreed to play. That's kind of what it starts in. What you're telling me is that you like stuff where the 4th quadrant, the role play, is actually pretty strong and pretty hefty. I played one game where a couple of characters were pretty into role play. There was one character in particular. She was really into her character and what her character did. When her fantasy husband died, she was bawling at the table. She was just crying up a storm because she felt it. She was there, and it's the first time I'd ever seen that. And she role played. She was her character, right? It's that kind of stuff. When I say it's not supposed to be fun, it's supposed to be rewarding. It's supposed to be transcendent. It's supposed to be something amazing, right? It's that kind of stuff where it's like you feel what's going on. It's so real to you. That's what I think that people just don't get enough of. They just play a party game. They take D&D and turn it into a party game and just kind of goof off and have fun. It's like, if you want to play a party game, go ahead, but it's not the best it could be. It's not transcendent. All right. Totally customizable like Skyrim, but dependent on what you do in the world. Exactly. See, that's another set of optional rules. Do you like training? That's another XP system I have, where you go out and why do you need all this gold? To train the trainers. You go to the local chanter and be like, hey, I need my next level. And he's like, great, it's 10,000 gold. You're like, well, I guess I'm going dungeon delving, right? It's like, if you want to encourage dungeon delving and wealth getting, require gold for leveling up. But instead of doing old school and saying, you get 1 XP for every gold piece, it's like, that makes a certain amount of sense, but to me, it doesn't make enough sense. You can say, hey, the reason why you're getting this gold is for XP. You purchase XP, one gold piece per XP, instead of you just get it. It's like, no, you're purchasing it. You pay the trainer, and then he trains you and levels you up, right? So you can do that with the custom class system, where, in Skyrim they have it. You can go to trainers and get trained, and you can also level up with use. In a tabletop game, it's kind of hard to track use and say, all right, yeah, you level up when you use your one-handed weapon a lot. It's like, that's kind of difficult. In tabletop, I would just go with the trainer thing and say, yeah, you're using all these things. You use whatever you want. And maybe that gives you like a little edge or a little buff, or you get some other thing somewhere. But again, it's really hard to track unless you count like every time you get a nat 20 while doing X thing, and that counts as an experience point. That's, I think, the only way you could do it. That's something that ICRPG did, but you definitely couldn't count every attack roll or something. You would have to be nat 1s, nat 20s, something like that. So yeah, you can do that and say, hey, with some mixture of the two, perhaps you go out to the trainers and you train. This gives this lets the GM give the party reasons to travel and to move. Because guess what? The trainers could be moving around. One could be in danger. One could die, and maybe he needs, he's not replaced yet, and you need to go escort his replacement from the far lands, and he's coming in to help. Maybe the trainers, here's the cool thing. The trainer can only train you to level 6 or something, and he's like, I'm only level 6. I can't train you past that. You need to go find a master. And now, say you're a monk, right? And you're training with monks on the monastery, and each monastery is like a different subclass. So if you choose this subclass, you're training with them, right? And which I think is a super cool idea. The different subclasses are just different people, different trainers in the world, and like you start out at 0. Like in Skyrim, you start out with nothing, right? So you start out at 0, and you go to a certain guild or a master or something, and you say, hey, train me, and he trains you up in the class, and then he's like, hey, there are 3 other masters. They all teach different subclasses. I just teach the base class. Pick one, and you have to go to them and like pick your subclass manually and get the. I think that's cool, but they only train you to a certain way. So you're a monk and you're doing your monk things, and then you get level 6, and you're like, I can't go past this. Now you have to find like the master monk. Maybe the master monk is like a polymorph gold dragon, or an actual gold dragon that's like, great. The only thing you need now is like meditation, or like you're a cleric and you're trying to level up and learn more stuff. The temple can't teach anymore. You have to go to your bishop, and then you'll get to level 8. And then the bishop's like, I can't teach anymore. You have to find a diva. You have to actually find an angel. So now you have to go to like a plane. You have to go to Mount Celestia and work for the diva. He's like, great, I have a test for you. Go kill 20 fiends or 1,000. You actually have missions and stuff to go on. I think that's so much more interesting than just I got XP. I just killed monsters all day and I'm level 20. It's like, I think if you're level 20, you should have had to do some amazing things to get there. Not, you may have incidentally done some along the way. I think you should have to do interesting things. Like if you want to level up as a barbarian, in my system it's a brute. If you have to level up as a brute, then for every level that you want, you have to go into a dungeon and clear that level, solo. Of course, that doesn't work in a group game. That's just kind of a hypothetical, but, you have to go and go into the 3rd level of dungeon if you want level 3, 4th level, 5th level, and it just keeps getting worse, right? Stuff like that, where you do a specific thing and you level up in your class because that's the thing that your class does, and you have to like find the trainer or the item or the challenges. Like, I think it's like, I saw this in YouTube like years ago. It was like a threshold or something, where in order to level up, you get all the XP, but now you need to do a threshold challenge. I think that's what it's called. You must complete a threshold challenge to actually get your level. Stuff like that. There are so many optional rules for XP because there's so many ways you can do it. Again, you don't get bored playing arches and avatars because you have so much variety. Everything stays fresh so long all the time. There's so much stuff. I've tried to collect all of the stuff on the internet. All the ideas, all the magic systems, and the like Ars Magica. I haven't played it yet, but I hear about the magic system. It's like, cool, I'll have one similar. I'll probably read the book, take whatever inspiration and bits that I can, and build my own magic system that's generally the same like verb and noun freeform thing, right? Like every little thing, and that'll just be one subclass that does that. It's probably the chanter with like words of power or like putting words together, that kind of thing. It's taking everything out there and putting in this one-stop shop. So you can play this game forever, and it has all of the option rules and all the play styles and all the genres of every game out there. It's this one ultimate collection of everything. That's my goal for it. It's like, take all the innovation we've had. We are not in an innovative industry. We are in an iterative industry where people aren't making new things as much as they're simply improving on what we have, right? I don't know which system had which system first used degrees of success, where if you roll this number, you get one success, and then this one is a better success, and this is a great success, right? But then Pathfinder took it and applied it to every 10 of the roll. And then Dungeon Cook took it and said every 5 of the roll. And then I took it and said every 5 of the roll plus the dice chain from DCC. We're just iterating. We keep going. The next guy after me is gonna pick something and do something else, right? But my thing is I want to iterate on everything. I don't want to just pick one little thing and be like, all right, I do something a little bit better here, and I release it. I want the company, I want the game, I want the setting to be legendary. I want it to be like, it took this dude 10 years, but he took the best of every game out there and every setting and every genre and every option or rule and every play style, and he put it in one massive family of products and one massive world and setting and game system with all the supplements and whatnot and all the different optional, like everything in one. I want it to be like this absolute behemoth. Like a colossal project. It's not even a game or a world. It's just this huge thing. That's what I'm going for. That's really what I want. I don't want people to have to go anywhere else anymore. I want them to go here. And of course, that's not going to last long because people are going to keep making new stuff and keep iterating, and I'll be outdated one day. But I want it to be something where it's like, yeah, like back in 2030, this happened. This guy made this thing, and it was like phenomenal. And yeah, we kept moving past it, but nothing like that had ever been done before. Like, that's what I want to do. I want it to be legendary. All right, one big challenge to this is the group aspects of things. Is there enough space for individual character development of the sort needed for personalized training paths and a full party of different PCs? That really has to do with how the GM and the players run it. Are they taking turns? Does the GM put multiple objectives in the same spot? You can absolutely do it. If you look at Critical Role Season 2, there were plenty of times when each character had some personal, backstory goal thing. Like, Caduceus wanted to go to the fiery volcano place to do something with his family, and then Bo wanted to go back to her family. Everyone went with Bo back to her dad's vineyard, and then everyone went with someone else to another place, right? The party just follows each person on their own individual quest. What if those actually leveled you up? And when everyone completed their round of quests, everyone levels up at once, and then you do it again, right? You can make it work, absolutely. Buffs from training is dangerous. Everything inflates quickly. It can. A lot of my things are temporary. Like you sharpen your blade and it's a +1. Yeah, well, if you get a nat 1 on your attack roll, it goes back down. So you get a +1 for as long as you can keep it. So it's not when you make a lot of things timed or make them run out or damage or fall away, it helps with the balance. In 5e, everything is permanent. Everything. And so it just keeps going up. If it goes up and down, up and down, up and down, you maintain balance. Before you can advance your combat training, you need facilities and training circumstances, upgrading weapons in order to improve attack bonus, upgrading living conditions, bodybuilding in order to have more HP or get attribute bonuses, stuff like that. Build a wizard tower before you can research magic. You can tie this into base building, strongholds, domain level play, optional rules. If you want to say, hey, you can't level up past 10 unless you have your own domain and you have a noble title and you're recognized by a king, go ahead. That might be some optional rule in there somewhere that says, hey, here's one way you can do it if you want to encourage domain level play, right? There's so many options. You're not pigeonholed. You get to do whatever you want in the system because I tell you all the different things. All right. Build an orphanage in order to get a steady stream of orphans for your unholy rituals. All right, dark turn. Buddha King. A great RPG campaign is similar to a zany one-shot, the same way that a competitive basketball league is similar to one of those basketball machines at Dave & Buster's. Kinda. Yeah, I think I would agree. But if everything is magic happy, tea party time, then what even is a full campaign? You're farther along in developing the stuff than I expected, and you seem to have a solid grip on the philosophy of it. People will tell you not to lead with your best work. I'm not. Along the lines of iterating everything, have you considered the possibilities of making downtime instead of uptime? Braunstein is a more and more popular word. Feed into domain play, and domain play will feed into the rest of the game forever. Exactly. I've been looking at Axe, Adventure Conqueror King system, and not really looking into it. I've watched a few of his videos. The Arbiter of Worlds, I've been talking about it, and his axe system with domain level play. I actually just wrote down the stub for an article today about two different methods to approach domain level play. One is essentially taken from Pendragon, and the other is something like Axe, where the first 5 levels you're the adventurer, and then the next 5 levels you're the conqueror, and you're more of like the warrior archetype. And then from levels 11 to 15, you're the king, and that's your domain level play. And then levels after that, you're like going into other planes and doing cool stuff, right? It's by tiers. And that's cool. You can absolutely do that, but it can make kind of a jarring thing. It's like you do this, and now you do something pretty different for the rest of the game, right? Another way of doing it is sprinkling it in. In Pendragon, which is like in different RPG if you haven't heard of it, different adventure game really. In Pendragon, you have the seasons and whatnot, so you're doing your adventuring in the first 3 seasons, and then in winter you have the it's like called the winter phase, and then you go back home to your keep, your castle, because you play as knights. You go back home to your castle and you find out what has been happening over the year, and you do your rest and recovery. Then you do your domain level play, and then you go out for 3 more seasons and do adventuring, and then you return. So you, instead of saying, hey, you have to wait 11 levels before you can do domain play, it's like, no, you do domain play every level, right? And then it's the last thing. You go home, you do your training, you rest and recover, and then next year when spring comes, you're the next level, right? And then as you keep going, your base, your domain gets bigger and bigger and better, and you keep expanding, and that's your thing how you go. You can do that. You can do it by tiers, where once you reach level 11, then you can get it, or level 10, or level 5, or whatever. You can. There are lots of different ways to do it. Again, customizability. You get to let it fit your campaign, and the intention is to give you these things and let you run with them, right? I think there were several questions way back there that I didn't answer. Along the lines of iterating everything, have you considered the possibility of making? Oh yeah, I already said that. What if the game was the downtime and the tactical expeditions were special events? Game was the downtime. Yeah, you could do it that way. I don't think a lot of people would like to do that, because a lot of people like adventure, right? The whole adventure game thing. If you're playing an adventure game but you're not most of the time adventuring, I don't think a lot of people would like it, unless they're like really into story gaming. But I don't think of a person who would enjoy domain level play and think, oh yeah, that's a I'm trying to get this thing to hold still. I don't know how I get it to hold still sometimes and not fade. When I think of someone who likes domain level play, I don't think of someone who's really into story and whatnot. I think of someone who's more into the game parts. Like, I want to win, I want to expand my empire, I want to conquer, right? That's the kind of person. That's more of the second pillar. That's more of the second quadrant, the game, the gameplay, the adventure, right? So that kind of person probably wouldn't want extended downtime and then some adventuring, but that's just a thought. Again, any GM, any group can run it however they want. Heard so much on Pendragon, never played it. Knight Errant is another smaller indie game following along those lines. The domain rules supported by morale mechanics along the lines of Grave and Prestige. Tiers of interaction. The adventure gamers could sort of be temporary guests, while the others really make the world with their stories. Yeah, you can. Whatever works for you. There are tons of ways you can structure the adventure and the resulting story. Hey, Incast! Welcome, man! Welcome back. So glad to see you. Mechanical restlessness. You can have both as long as you protect both from the other. All right. I think I have maybe another half hour in me. I mean, I'll try not to go to 11. I have work tomorrow. But yeah, we'll see. If y'all have any more questions, any more stuff about my system, my world, my philosophy, my thoughts on 5e, and how 5e is broken, and how it's bad, and how I intend to fix it, and just the specifics of how I intend to fix it, anything you want. Yeah, dude, I've had these for like years. There were a couple years that I was working at Walmart. I'm still working at Walmart, but I was doing a 2 to 11 shift, and I, in my 18-year-old wisdom, was like, hey, like a total disregard for natural human function. I was like, what most people do when they get home from work at 5 o'clock is they, rest and relax and game and do their stuff until 10 o'clock and they go to bed. So what I'm going to do is get home at 11 o'clock, go for another 5 hours, and go to bed at 4 in the morning. Then I sleep until 12 or 1, get up, go to work at 2, right? I was like, well, I'm just going to take my entire normal schedule and just shift it ahead that many hours, right? But that totally ignores the fact that the body wants to sleep at night. And permanent, maybe, who knows, we'll see. But yeah, that's pretty much what happened. The Walled Marat. Yeah. Second cup of coffee. Yeah, good for you, Canonical. Good for you. I don't drink coffee. I don't like relying on stimulants. Anyone have any more questions? Anything at all? I can tell you a little bit about my crazy world building. That's kind of what I was gonna. That's the title of the stream, isn't it? Talking about world building, and it didn't get very far. We'll see if I can speed through some stuff, unless y'all have questions. Shamanic adventure, polyphasic sleeping. Really, I watched a lot of YouTube videos about that. And never tried it myself. I did hear, you know, the guy who built WordPress. He did what's it called, Uber or Ubermensch or some kind of sleeping like that, where he slept. I think it was like extreme polyphasic, where he slept like 20 minutes every hour, like throughout the entire day, 20 minutes every hour. And he said he just had infinite energy and he could just go forever. And he built all of WordPress in a couple of months. And he only stopped because, you know, he got a partner. And his girl was like, dude, I want you to go to bed. He's like, fine. And then he stopped being productive because he wasn't doing that anymore. So it's like, that's interesting. You can do that. Start to see the walls. See the walls of the simulation. You know, I don't think I'm going to read this. I think I'm going to read the mystery section. The Hat Man is a character in a novel I'm writing. Really, Blake? I didn't know you were a novelist, Mr. Russell. I'm gonna just read a couple of the mysteries of my setting. I just wrote like mysteries, and I'm just gonna read it. The giants, why they don't talk, why they're naked, why they're gray, why most of them are stuck in a certain place and can't seem to leave. Why there's a giant raised city, like a giant city that's just raised up and you can't access it. What's up there, right? Like these are all just mysteries. The sandstorms, why are there sandstorms? Why is there stasis? Why are there the natural caverns? And then the mystery of each bastion, almost like in Fallout, you have the mysteries of each vault and what's going on. I can make each bastion interesting. The elves, the clouds that always seem to be stuck in one place in the sky. Why is that there? The crystal glowing parts of the clouds. Who made the crystals? I have like 3 or 4 different crystals in the world that do various things. One is a monster control crystal. The other is it controls death. The other affects how much silver and gold exists in the world. So like spawns extra silver and gold. So if you turn that one on, boom, more treasure. Another is the open or the revealing crystal, where it opens and reveals doors, caves, hidden things, secrets, anything you want opened or revealed. That crystal does it, right? So there are these 4 crystals in the world, and they can be like chopped up into pieces. Like the players can actually chop them up and like use each of them almost like a magic item, and like use it to activate a certain thing or carry the whole crystal with them. And like it's like in the dark crystal, like the big giant thing, it's like that size, each of them, and so they can like carry the whole thing with them and like reveal tons of stuff. But now they're a sitting duck, they're a target, everyone wants it, right? So crystals. There's a apparently dead dragon stuck in stasis somewhere. He's just like, he appears dead, but he's stuck in a stasis field. He's actually alive, and he's been there for like 80 years or something. He's not happy, but yeah, you might be able to free him. Who knows? I got this idea about there's still one still sentient giant, because all the rest are like mind blanked. That's why they're all gray and just walking around and whatnot. There's one that's still sentient in the Northeast Mountains. Why? The other giants chose to blank themselves with Ethereum using ether ley lines rather than be made dead, because the long night came and made everyone dead or undead. What is only potential and doesn't really exist cannot die. So they blanked themselves and made themselves like less real, like less existent. They're more just ethereal in between, and so they couldn't die. So that's how they kept themselves alive. One survived by putting the shadow/death around him into 3 towers he built. And these are the 3 towers in the northern part of the country. He resents the rest of the giants for being cowards and leaving him alone to do it alone. There is one zombie giant, one that didn't blank himself and got affected by the long night. He's undead. There's one zombie giant in the western vertical chasm. and he can be aroused and from sleep. So he's just like a big dead giant, just like fell down a chasm in the ground. He's just sitting there, and he's all decayed and whatnot. And people are like, oh look, it's a dead giant. It's like, it's an undead giant. It's like, oh, and maybe the players will arouse him. Who knows? I haven't actually figured out what would rouse him from slumber. He can be aroused. A sentient giant fears/hides from the zombie giant because he's afraid of being infected. He used people's souls like gloves to handle the darkness. So there are several ruins in his area. The Winter Druid protects and conceals him. There's a more powerful shaman that would punish him if he knew about his deeds and location. And he's a traveling shaman. So essentially, the way that this giant survived the long night was he found a bunch of mortals, and he killed them and took their souls and like weaved it like gloves, and then he grabbed the darkness and moved it. Because if you touch the darkness, it infects you, right? So we used Ethereum, used souls, so it would, essentially wear out the souls around him, because, giants have the ability to like wield various things. Some wield narrative naturally, others wield souls, blah, blah, blah. So he grabbed their souls and used it like body armor and protection, and like moved all the shadow out of his domain. And every time it came in, he would move it out. And he built these towers to like store the shadow in. And so they're like giant-sized towers. They're absolutely huge, and they're huge for him. And so he's all alone just building these towers and just shoving the darkness into it until his area, was peaceful enough to live in. And then the long night ended, and he's like, okay, cool. And like, if people knew that, then he just massacred the population previously in order to save himself. It's like, all right, he exists in the world in the Northeast Mountains, and my players have no idea, and hardly anyone actually knows. There's one druid and whatever followers of the druid there are that know about him. And the players, after seeing all these blank giants, they're all just gray and naked and just walking around and just like, they totally blank themselves. They can go up and find a giant in the mountains just walking along. Nobody's like fur coats or whatnot. It's a snow giant. And he sees the party. He's like, no, and he just runs away. And like, what? There's a normal giant? Why is he running? Like, I want my players to just stumble upon stuff and be like, this exists? I'm like, yeah, it's existed the whole time. It's like, oh, and it connects to the lore and the stuff. And like, everything should have relationships with other things. Here's the giant. The druid helps him. The shaman hates him. The druid and the shaman have a kind of relationship because they're part of the same class. And, there are like the ruins of the cities and stuff that the giant, killed everyone in to take their souls. And so, they were ancestors of these people, and so these people are like, oh, you killed our fathers and grandfathers, but there's this other city that actually was at war with them before, so they're like, yeah, you did it, so maybe they'll help the giant if it's discovered, and these guys will fight, right? Intrigue, relationships, all sorts of politics and whatnot. That's how you make something interesting. It's a powder keg waiting to go off. It's like, what's going to happen here? And then the players are dropped right in the middle of it, and they get to explore and expose and do all sorts of stuff. Then we have the Suprascopate, which I don't have a pantheon. I have a Suprascopate. There are the Pariah Princes, and the Pariah Princes are essentially like Daedric Princes, but just mortals, not like otherworldly beings. They're mortals that live up in the sky or the space or whatever plane they happen to have brought themselves to, and they have powers kind of like Daedric Princes. I like the idea of seeing some altar and going and talking to a person that's somewhere else, and him giving you power and missions and stuff. And they're not all powerful, but they have power and they can give you stuff. I really like that idea in Elder Scrolls, so I put it in here, just, tweaked it. They're not ancestors or Ethada spirits or anything. Pariah Princes, avatars. There are only a few avatars this early in the world, and only one of them is known by the party, by any of the people in the group, actually. They don't know about the avatar yet. Ruins, lots of ruins of all kinds, elven, dwarven, etc. Some are only accessible in certain, actually this is something I haven't talked about at all yet. I was thinking about talking about it. I'll have to save this for another time because, well, maybe. I don't know if I'll be able to. I just, when I have an idea, I feel like sharing. Let me finish this, then I'll share what a stromata is. Lore, people, creatures, monsters, treasure, items available in various ruins. Who made the crystals? Why? What? Where? When? Repeat for all mysteries. The Burning Silence. The Shuvu Cloud Realm. The Shuvu are my Aarakocra. Where are they coming from? Yeah, so like, the Shuvu all live up in the air, and they come down occasionally, and so the players are like, where their nests. They may go to all the different highest mountains because people are like, oh yeah, the bird folk live up on the highest mountains because they just assume so, and they get up there and there are no nests and whatnot, and then they find that they're actually living on the clouds, and that's something that the players and the players and the people in the world may not have even considered. It's like they live on solid clouds. The Burning Silence, the resources that cleanses the shadow slash death slash darkness, and then the Great Underground realm with map and full of details, so full of all the details that I have everywhere else. All right, for the new person that got here, and for those who are still here, I'm going to tell you about Stromata, and then I'm going to get off. So this says ruins, lots of all kinds, some only accessible in certain Stromata. I have two. I appreciate it. Okay, so I have essentially the four elemental planes are flying around in space, right? In the astral expanse. When they near the planet, when they near Earth, each in order, right? Yeah, I saw it. I'll have to read your stuff later. When the elemental planes, they're not together. They're like in a big long line. So this one, then that one. When each one passes by the material plane on its orbit through space, they're each essentially like big comets or big planets or whatnot. They influence the world, right? So when the Earth plane, the elemental plane of Earth flies by, it radiates out and affects the Earth. So the Earth starts, like to grow caves and mountains and whatnot, and maybe it grows, trees and things. Although I think trees are actually the combination of earth and water. But it grows earth and stuff, and the like all the metal ore underground, the gold and the silver, whatnot, all replenish, and everything that has to do with Earth just grows, and the whole land becomes, just like rocky and badlands and stones and everything, right? And then the water, the elemental plane of water passes by. And so all the lowlands just fill up with water, and all the mountaintops and the plateaus, they become islands. And then people build their ships and they sail all around and do whatnot, right? And now you go underwater, and the underwater creatures they either appear or they change. Like you have an earth creature, and then when the water thing comes by, it turns into a water creature, and then another one comes by, it turns back. You can have that version. You can say that they kind of like disappear until their plane comes back, or that they like go deep underground because the water just like sinks into like underground rivers, and so they're not on the surface swimming around. All the merfolk and the sea elves, they have to swim underground, and until the water one comes back. And then the air sibling, the elemental plane of air comes by, and the water drains and whatnot, and then all the mountain peaks and the plateaus and everything just start to lift up and float, right? Air makes everything float and fly. There's like tornadoes and whirlwinds and strong gusts of wind and the clouds, and everything is like affected by air. And then the fire one comes by, everything falls back down, and then all the mountain peaks turn into volcanoes, and lava runs in the valleys, and everything's all like a desert, and it's all sandy, and that's when you have the sandstorms and the sandworms and whatnot. And then the Earth one comes by. Well, actually, the Earth one is kind of in between the two, because you have the fire one, and then it's all like volcanic and hot, and then the Earth one comes in. In my mind, if you take fire and earth and combine them, you get either magma or desert. So if you take fire and you put earth into fire, you get magma, right? But if you take earth and you put fire onto earth, you scorch the earth. That's when you get a desert, right? And so when the earth one comes in, and the fire and the earth trade, it turns it into that desert thing, and then after a few years it'll turn into more just full earth, right? So there's a transition period between all of these, right? So that lets me have so much variety while keeping the same basic structure of the world. We have a plateau in the center, mountains over here, this over there, but instead of being like, oh, you have to travel to have nautical warfare, oh, and you have to go over here to have deserts, and you have to go, it's like, no, it just happens on time. This can happen like every season. Each one of these things can last 3 months, they can last 1 month, they can last a year, they can last 10 years, entirely up to you as the GM when you're running the setting. You can just pick one, be like, I really like this version, this elemental thing, more than the rest. We're doing this one. Done. Or you can be like, yeah, it just so happened that this year, the siblings were flying by very often. It changes every week. Entirely up to you, whatever you want. But that means after I build the map, I have to make a water version and a fire version and an air version and an earth version. And I get to I give them the map at the table, and they're like, oh yeah, we're doing this thing. So it's like, okay, cool. It's, this season or this year, this map comes on, everything is transitioning, and now this map is all firing, and now this map it's water. Like, all right, you build the ships, but this has to do with world building too. What if we actually lived in a world like that changed that much? Everyone would have to get good at everything. Everyone would have to, learn how to sail, and learn how to mountain climb, and learn how to survive in deserts, and learn how to survive in volcanic things, and learn how to, survive in mountainous regions, right? Because it's going to change on you. You don't have to move. And so, you walk in and you see a total desert, right? You see the big raised plateaus, and you see like ships up there in shipyards and ship docks, just like hanging out. And they're just like strung up by ropes or something. You're like, why are there ships up there in a desert? And then the water comes and just rises up. It's like, oh, now everyone sails. It's like, what? Like, and then you use my whole angle magic thing and say certain places are only accessible when you're in those certain elements. So maybe there is some underwater cave, and you can swim underwater and use like water breathing spells and whatnot. Swim underwater and find an underwater cave and access it. But then when the fire, when the elemental plane of fire comes by and everything's all desert, that cave doesn't exist. It only exists in the version with the water. And same thing, like this tower or this enemy or this magic item or this, like, so many things, creatures, NPCs, monsters, dragons, giants, you can say anything you want, only exists when, this certain elemental plane is nearby. So you can have so much variety in one setting with one group of people, one set of cities, one set of quests, one set of stuff. You have so much variety. This is what I mean by fantastic world building. I want to make stuff that's just out there. It's like, no one's ever done this. This is amazing. What the heck, right? That's what I'm going for. And this isn't, finished at all. I only started building this like a couple of weeks ago. But like, it's that kind of stuff where I'm like, this is just so unique, and it offers so much. It offers an experience that you don't get anywhere else. That's what I'm going for. Architrave Gaming should be the place you go to where, like, I want to find something I've never seen before. That's what I want. All right, I'm going to catch up on chat, answer questions, do whatnot, then I'll have to go to bed. Prestige classes, yeah. Choose of interaction. Okay. The Hatman is a character. The Orb of Currency Inflation. The Orb of Pondering. Yes. Elvish Weapon of Mass Destruction. First of all, Canticle and Blake, you two are my mega viewers. Thank you. And if Incast is still here, good on you, man. I appreciate y'all sticking out. That's cool. I appreciate that. All right, Elven Weapons of Mass Destruction. Yes, absolutely. You can have so many different. I don't just do like, oh, these are magic items. It's like, is this an elven magic item, a dwarven magic item? With an elven magic item, you can like add additional enchantments to it. With a dwarven, you have to like slay monsters with it, or maybe orcs require that, and maybe dwarvens you can put gems in it to, each gem you put in makes it +1, +2, +3, and so you have to find like the biggest, most priceless diamonds, and then like maybe each gem has a different enchantment, right? Let the different magic items feel different, not just a +1 sword. It's like, this is a flame tongue made by the orcs, and it actually works a certain way because it was made by the orcs, right? I want magic items and all magic to actually be distinct, separate individual stuff, and not just by class, but also by race. Each race has their own magics that they like to use. I haven't even gotten into it. One of you said, don't lead with your best stuff, and I said, I'm not. But then I'm remembering all of the stuff that I've said so far. There's one thing that is my very best, in my opinion, my best idea. I recorded a 20-minute video and I uploaded it, and I was like, I cannot bring myself to make this public. I had to just keep it private. No one has seen it yet because, in my opinion, it's like it's part of the elemental magic, the weather stuff, but it's the actual full detailed explanation of all of it and how it works. I think that is like a multi-million-dollar idea, and I just don't want to tell anyone. So I'm leading with a lot of my best stuff, not my very best. All right, or communities, we need to value their people and value their skills. Yes, never-ending frontier. Never-ending frontier. That's a really good word for it. Repopulating dungeons by fantastic intervention. Yes, exactly. Why drop a meteor on your kingdom to make space and you can have constant serial meteors? Exactly. See, that's weather. Serial meteors. Currency inflation orb is a weapon to destroy the civilization of peoples with short lifespans. Cool. Incast is here. Thanks for sharing. Permission to invite to my community server for TTRPG games with over 1,000 members. Um, if you want to drop in here on the stream, sure. I will make a channel in the Discord for self-promotion, and you can put it there. Okay, I will do that tonight. You are welcome to run the game there if you're interested in running it online with VTTs or Theater of the Mind. I have never run something online. It is something that, to me, there's so much of the magic of, like the third quadrant of the people there. You kind of got to have the people. It's you can't see them, they can't see you. Body language, you look at someone's camera above their head and you just see their forehead. They're just doing this, right? They're looking at a screen and whatnot. You're not actually engaging with them directly. I like the idea of being able to play anytime, anywhere, because I always have people online, but I think the experience would be so subpar. But I will try, I won't try anything once. I will try this once. And with a group like that, if with a group that size, who knows, I might be able to get 4 or 5 interested players, maybe 3, because I just don't do VTT, so I'm not very practiced with it. But I think thanks for the invite. Are you like in charge of the group or anything? I didn't tell you not to lead with your best stuff because I always like to absorb good stuff. Okay, fair enough. I have a good handful of GMs that love trying new systems. If you're interested in promoting the game there to the new players and GMs, we're a good spot, and I'm not asking for anything. Cool. Owner. All right, Incast. Yeah. I'll look into it. I'm gonna make the channel. You post the link there, and I'll look into it when I have time. Yeah, thanks for dropping by the stream. Thanks for that. Who knows? That might turn into something really interesting. Canticle, it is very different online. Room for improvement there and different development. Yeah, it's real different online. But maybe it's one of those difficult things I got to do in order to, grow, because there's a lot of growing to do. In order for me to consider this whole project complete, I would have to read every major game system out there and pull what I liked from each of them. Something like Index Card RPG has the single target number die, right? You put a big old die on the table, it's like 14, and it's like, all right, everything in this room is 14. You want to attack the monster, DC 14. You want to push him over, DC 14. Pick the lock, DC 14, right? Super simple. Stuff like that, where it's like, there's an idea, there's a mechanic, I want to find a place for that mechanic somewhere. It may be a certain subclass that does it. It may be a certain skill or ability or path or what. It may be some optional rule, right? But I want to include everything out there. It's kind of just this weird passion project where it's like, I want to collect everything that has ever been made and put it in one thing. Even if the one thing consists of 76 books, I want it in one project with the same name on top, which is the name I'm not revealing. But that's what I want. And yeah, my only concern is maybe some people would be like, you're stealing our stuff. It's like, bro, we've been iterating on everything for 50 years. Everyone steals from it. It's just how the industry works. But yeah, I'll do it tactfully and whatnot, and we'll be fine. But yeah, I want to find all the good stuff. It's good stuff. I want to find all the good stuff and collect it and make it make sense, right? You don't own mechanics. You can't copyright mechanics. I want to find all the mechanics and find a place for them and make them all fit. And that's my passion project. I want to build something that is just huge. That's everything, right? I'm such a completionist in my mind. If something is missing, it's like, no, we need to find the piece to plug the hole, right? It's like we need to have it complete. So I wouldn't be satisfied until I had a complete world system setting, ecosystem, all of it. Play by post has huge potential for narrative downtime. That is true. That's something I haven't done. I know someone who played the whole play by post game. She really liked it. Not chat room RP. Ugh. Chat room RP has PTSD flashbacks. Subclass again. Bro, you don't like subclass? If you make your base system modular, then you can keep up with your own. Gotta catch them all. Exactly. That's part of it. The base system is intended to be not so much modular. The base system is supposed to be like the central hub with a bunch of little things that stick out, and then other things can attach onto those little ports, right? The base system itself can't really, it is pretty modular in a lot of ways, but you could say it's granular modularity because there's so many different optional rules. And so it's not like this mod or that mod, it's like these 40 mods because there are tons of optional rules. I went over a tiny handful of the optional rules that I have that could be applied. Skill-based systems do modularity better than classed systems. They absolutely can. I don't like D&D subclasses, but I like subclasses in most other RPGs. Skills. Cool. Hey, I appreciate y'all hanging out with me. I enjoy this a lot. I think I might start streaming later just because no one really gets on until like, 2 hours ago about. And so yeah. Anyway, I really appreciate y'all hanging out with me. I really enjoy hanging out with you and sharing stuff, and y'all have questions and all this stuff. As time goes on, I'll probably stream less and less often. Right now I'm doing it like, 4 times a week? Or more. It'll drop off eventually, but I appreciate you sticking with me while I'm here. And Lord willing, in just a couple of years, we'll actually be able to have a team and funding and the whole shebang and actually get this thing off the ground, because I genuinely believe Arches and Avatars will absolutely improve the way anyone and everyone plays 5e. It is just phenomenal. And then the setting itself on top of that, with all like the natural magic and whatnot, that's not even like the game rules. That's not the adventure game. That's the simulation. That's the setting. Put both of those together, that'll just be this phenomenal thing. So, yeah, I really believe it, and I'm grateful that I've like almost 200 subscribers now and 10,000 views and 3 patrons. In the first month and 10 days. It's just phenomenal. The Lord is generous. Y'all are generous. So thank you. I'm gonna check the last couple chats. Thank you and good night, Incast. Looking forward to learning more. Ping me Discord anytime. Cool. All right. Have a good night, y'all. Thank you very much for watching. God bless.